Number 10. Sisters. The Sisters were a group of clones that Gabrielle Kinney was a part of. Altogether, including Gabby, there were 10 of them. They were created by Alchemax using samples of DNA from both Logan and Sarah Kinney, Laura aka X-23's mother. They were each known as a new numbered clone for X-23. Zelda was the oldest and the leader. With the sisters, the elders usually protected the younger clones, with Gabby being one of the youngest and often receiving the most protection from the other sisters. Alchemax intended to create them to be used as bodyguards, but they eventually escaped and sought to get revenge on their captors, running into Laura Kinney, who was Wolverine at the time, and who initially questioned their motives. Number 9. Fire Knives. On part 1 of this list we talked about some of the mongrels, but there was someone that we did not mention. Fire Knives is a daughter of Wolverine. We don't know much about her, not knowing her true name or the name of her mother or who exactly her mother was. What we do know is that Daken recruited her to join a team known as the Mongrels, whose name was likely inspired by the name Daken had taken, which means mongrel in Japanese, a cruel name that his adopted parents' servants referred to him by, due to his mixed appearance. The Mongrels were a group used against Wolverine by the organization known as the Red Right Hand, all of whose members had a vendetta against him. We don't know if Fire Knives had any superhuman abilities or was a mutant like her father, but we do know that she was a skilled martial artist and a combatant. It's also possible, considering her own fiery red locks, that her mother was a redhead, which Logan tends to have a weakness and fondness for, like many other characters in comics too. Seems to be a pattern in the comics world. Redheads. We like redheads. Number 8. Hulk Jr. This is the child that Old Man Logan adopted after defeating the Banner Clan, who in turn had killed Logan's family after they got tired of waiting for him to return with the rent money. When Logan of Earth 807128 had discovered they had killed his family, he went into a rage, killing everyone except for Little Hulk Jr., the original Hulk, Bruce Banner's favorite and newest member of the gang. Baby Bruce was then adopted by Old Man Logan, joining him on his adventures, with Logan vowing to raise him as his own son and teach him how to be a hero. Number 7. Scotty and Jade. Scotty and Jade were Old Man Logan's naturally born children, which he had and raised with his partner Maureen. It's thought that Scotty was named after Scott Summers, Wolverine's old and long dead friend. Both his son and daughter, as well as Maureen, were of course murdered in Logan's absence when he went on that mission to acquire enough money to pay rent to the Hulk gang. This was the consequence that Logan was threatened with by the Banner Clan if he didn't pay rent in time. The sad thing was he did collect and bring back the money in time, only to find that the Hulks had gotten bored and restless, tired of waiting, so they killed his family anyways, before the due date that Logan and the Banner Clan had actually agreed upon. Pretty tragic. Number 6. Kuan. Kuan is Wolverine's young clone who is from the alternate Earth of 13119. He first appeared in the Savage Wolverine series, where we were both introduced to him and also watched him die. What's rare in comparison to the reality of Earth 616 is that Kuan was a male clone, whereas many of the Wolverine clones we've seen have been female. He was sent after Logan to help retrieve, or potentially kill and retrieve, his body for a mysterious organization that is never revealed. Instead, the two of them end up teaming up.
Number 5. There was an original Black Canary? Black Canary is a well-loved superhero in the DC universe, but not everyone realizes that Dinah Lance was not the original hero to go by this name. Her mother, Dinah Drake, was the original Black Canary, first appearing in Flash Comics number 86 all the way back in 1947. Originally her MO was similar to the Green Hornets, with her posing as a criminal in order to get close to and then take out criminals, but she soon abandoned this plan and became a more straightforward crime fighter. She had no powers, but was a skilled fighter and acrobat who was known for training canaries to do amazing feats. She joined the Justice Society and married a detective named Larry Lance. She eventually gave up the mantle and was replaced by her daughter, Dinah Laurel Lance, in 1969's Justice League of America number 75. The second Black Canary is far more effective than her mother, being one of the greatest martial artists on the planet, according to official canon being evenly matched with Batman. She has a keen tactical mind, and although she doesn't train birds, she possesses the metahuman gene, which gives her her signature ability, the Canary Cry, a devastating sonic attack capable of damaging objects and hurting her enemies. Number 4. Johnny Storm's Human Torch is fantastic fantastic. The original Human Torch was a humanoid android designed by a scientist to be a perfect imitation of humanity. Due to a bizarre design flaw, whenever the android was exposed to air, he would burst into an extremely hot flame. The android achieved sentience and went on a run through the city, burning everything he touched and being unable to control his fire. He eventually learned how to control himself and became one of the most popular Marvel crime fighters of the Golden Age. He was retired as a character not long after the end of the Golden Age, and his name and power set were reused for Johnny Storm when the Fantastic Four stories began being published at the beginning of the Silver Age. He was eventually brought back, but it is fair to say that he is the more obscure version of the character, with Johnny not only being much more powerful, but much more interesting than the Jim Hammond android. Number 3. Wally West, a Generations Flash. Similar to how Dick Grayson got the Batman gig, Wally West started out as Barry Allen's sidekick, Kid Flash. When Barry Allen seemingly died in the Crisis on Infinite Earths, his old sidekick took up the mantle. Unlike other legacy characters who took on the original hero's legacy for like a year, Wally was the main Flash in DC continuity from 1986 all the way until 2009. In this time, he became a fan-favorite version of the character, being more quippy and impulsive than his mentor. Wally was so popular that when the Justice League animated series came out in 2003, Wally was the featured speedster, not Barry. In fact, when Barry was eventually brought back in 2009, many fans were quick to point out that Barry had been rewritten to have many of the personality traits that had made Wally so beloved. Number 2. Hal Jordan, Earth's greatest Green Lantern. The original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, got his powers when a mystical entity called the Starheart came to Earth and took on the shape of a lantern. It saved Alan from a train wreck and gave him the mental instructions to build himself a power ring which would create energy constructs. He became the first Green Lantern and joined the Justice Society. As the Golden Age of comics ended, his series was cancelled and he became somewhat obscure. 8 years after his cancellation, the title and concept of Green Lantern was reinvented and we were introduced to Hal Jordan in 1959. He was a test pilot who was chosen to join the Green Lantern Corps, a group of space cops tasked with defending the galaxy. Hal got a better look than Alan, he was given more power, and most importantly, was part of a group that lent itself to a rich and complex mythology that is much more beloved by fans than the original Golden Age version of the character. Number 1. Barry Allen was so cool he started the Silver Age. The original Flash, appearing in 1940, was Jay Garrick, a college student who accidentally inhaled heavy water vapors while taking a smoke break in his lab. This gave him his super speed, which allowed him to become the hero, the Flash. Jay's Flash was known for wearing a simple red shirt with a lightning bolt and a kettle helmet with golden wings on the sides. When Flash was reinvented in the late 50s, his new identity was Barry Allen, a crime lab scientist who was hit by lightning and doused with chemicals and became able to tap into the Speed Force. Barry was given a much more iconic costume and series of rogues to fight, and his introduction is often referred to as the start of the Silver Age of comics. In an odd move, it was revealed that in Barry's universe, the adventures of Jay Garrick were comic books that Barry read as a child, inspiring him to call himself Flash. In the iconic Flash of Two Worlds story, it was revealed that Jay actually lived in a different world in the multiverse. The comics were a result of the writer being psychically influenced by the multiverse. This was later retconned and Jay became the Flash of the World War II era rather than a semi-fictional figure. But most of what we love about the Flash was introduced not by Jay's time as the Scarlet Speedster, but Barry's. Number 10. Ironheart. Better than Iron Man. Okay, hear me out on this one. Riri Williams is a teenage superhero genius who was able to reverse engineer an Iron Man suit by looking at Tony Stark's suit. Tony was impressed with her work and drafted her to fight alongside him in the second Marvel Civil War against Captain Marvel's forces. By the end of the war, Tony was in a coma and Riri was made Ironheart, Iron Man's successor. She used an AI of Tony to help her with the learning curve, but eventually replaced him with an AI of her own design. In her time as a superhero, she has managed to defeat a variety of supervillains and has shown herself to be close to, if not equal, to Tony Stark in raw intelligence. But why is she better? Well, it honestly has less to do with her and more to do with Tony. The original Iron Man has made a series of blunders over the years, such as forming the Illuminati, which led to an angry Hulk taking over New York. He was directly involved in starting not one but two civil wars, one of which resulted in the Avengers being disbanded and unable to prevent the Skrulls Skrull invasion. He was in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. but screwed up so hard that Norman Osborn was put in charge of national security, and he turned himself into a god and killed all of his friends after going crazy. Riri Williams is the better superhero simply because she hasn't had multiple instances of nearly destroying the world in her efforts to make it better. Number 9. Blue Beetle just keeps getting better. The original Blue Beetle was Daniel Garrett, an archaeologist who discovered a powerful artifact called the Blue Scarab. It bonded to Dan and gave him superpowers such as flight, super strength, and energy projection. He became the first Blue Beetle, but one of Dan's students, Ted Kord, took over the mantle when Dan was killed in action while trying to stop Ted's evil uncle from taking over the world. Ted couldn't get the Scarab to work for him and decided to instead train himself to his physical peak and use his skills as an inventor to create vehicles and gadgets that would help him fight crime. He operated as a hero in the DC universe for years, being a member of such teams as the Birds of Prey and the Justice League until he was killed in action by the villain Maxwell Lord. The mantle of Blue Beetle survived, with the third Blue Beetle, a teenager named Jamie Reyes, finding the Scarab that granted the first Blue Beetle his powers. It fused itself to his spine and gave him the abilities of flight, super strength, mechanokinesis, metamorphosis, as well as access to sound, energy, and fire manipulation weapons. Not only is he the coolest looking of the three Beetles, he is by far the most powerful, and he only gets more powerful as Jamie gets more experience as a hero. Number 8. The new Superman does what the original can't. The son of Lois Lane and Clark Kent, Jonathan Samuel Kent has been a superhero since an early age, becoming Superboy when he was 10 years old. After an incident involving a black hole, he was imprisoned by the villain Ultraman for several years before he escaped and returned to Earth. Although it had been years for him, it had only been a few weeks on Earth. The now 17-year-old was tasked by his father with protecting Earth while he went away to deal with an extraterrestrial threat, and John became the new Superman. Although one might assume that as someone who's half human and half Kryptonian, he would be weaker than a full Kryptonian, tests that were run on him before his birth by Batman revealed that his unique physiology would actually be an advantage, giving him the potential to be even more powerful than the original Man of Steel. Another way that he has more power than Kal-El is his ability to become involved in Earth's issues. As the original Superman explained to his son in Superman, Son of Kal-El #2, the reason he had refrained from involving himself more in many of Earth's issues and conflicts was that as an alien born on Krypton, he didn't feel he had the right to impose his beliefs on the people of Earth and should instead lead by example. He went on to say that as someone who was born on Earth, John could involve himself more and end up having more of a positive effect on Earth than even the original Superman. Number 7. Dick Grayson crushed it as Batman. The original Batman is one of the most beloved superheroes of all time, having used his massive brain and fortune to become the world's greatest detective and one of the world's greatest martial artists. When a young boy named Dick Grayson's parents were killed, Bruce adopted him and made him the first Robin. All of Dick's childhood was dedicated to training him to be an even better hero than Batman and to perhaps one day take over the mantle. Dick eventually became the hero Nightwing, but when Bruce was presumed dead, it became clear that a new Batman had to take his place. Several people fought over the cowl, such as Tim Drake and Jason Todd, but in the end, Dick became the new Batman and took on Bruce's troubled son Damian as his Robin. Not only did Dick manage to live up to the mantle and keep Gotham safe, in some ways he was actually a better Batman than Bruce. He had a healthier relationship with the GCPD, where they were more comfortable around him and willing to work with him. He was able to take Damian under his wing in a way that Bruce struggled to match, and he was more open to collaboration with other heroes and members of the Bat family, something Bruce constantly struggles to do, resulting in him causing issues for everyone. When Bruce returned, he was so impressed with Dick's work that he asked him to stay on as Batman to protect Gotham while he worked on establishing Batman Inc. Although he has since gone back to being Nightwing, it's no wonder Batman considers Dick Grayson his greatest accomplishment. Number 6. Captain Marvel. More powerful than the original? Mar-Vell was a member of the alien race known as the Kree, who came to Earth and took on the identity of Dr. Walter Lawson, a scientist working at Cape Canaveral, Florida. There, he met Carol Danvers, who he developed a relationship with. He became the hero Captain Marvel, and she became Miss Marvel. The two acted as superheroes for years until Mar-Vell died of lung cancer in 1982. In the time after his death, a few different characters have taken on the Captain Marvel identity, such as his son, Genis Vell, and Monica Rambeau. But in 2012, Carol Danvers took on the mantle and became the new and current Captain Marvel. An element that she does better than the original Captain is her ability to work with others. While Mar-Vell would occasionally work with other other heroes, he was never made an Avenger until he was posthumously granted the honor. Carol, on the other hand, has been a member of several different teams over the years, such as the Avengers, S.H.I.E.L.D., the Guardians of the Galaxy, and the Alpha Flight space program. She is also a frequent ally of the X-Men. She is a much more involved hero, and as a result has had a much bigger impact on Marvel continuity than the original Captain Marvel.
Number 5. Brian and Mari. Brian and Mari Logan are the children of both Mariko and Wolverine from Earth 1298. This is an alternate reality where Xavier would end up becoming the new Shadow King, and as such the X-Men would be led instead by their co-founder in this reality, Magneto. Here, Havoc is also the only surviving member of the Summers family. We first see Mari and Brian in the Mutant X series, where they are kidnapped by Sabretooth and later have to be saved by their father. Number 4. Wild Thing. Wild Thing is Rena Logan, the daughter of Wolverine and of Elektra from the alternate Earth of 982. The reality of Earth 982 has the Age of Heroes, the big boom of superheroic activity on Earth, happening 15 years earlier in comparison to the main continuity of Earth 616, meaning a lot of our heroes from the main continuity in this reality are retired or simply older now. Such is the case for Rena's parents. Rena is a high schooler when we meet her who is trying to balance the lifestyle of being a hero with that of being a teenager. Her abilities are similar to her father's, but instead of bone claws, she has psychic claws. She is also an insanely skilled martial artist, having been trained by both her father and her mother, so not someone you want to mess with. Number 3. Torrent. Kendall Logan is the amazingly cool daughter of Wolverine and Storm from the alternate Earth of 9811. Reality 9811 gives us an alternate world where the heroes and villains that Beyonder transported to Battle World during Secret Wars never left. Torrent was one of the heroic children who assembled to battle the children of the villains. Torrent has her father's healing factor and her mother's abilities to control the weather. She can also fly, like Storm. Number 2. Kirika Yoshida. From the Age of Apocalypse alternate Earth of 295, we have the daughter that Mariko Yoshida and Wolverine never got to have in the main continuity reality verse 616, Kirika Yoshida. So many alternate Mariko and Wolverine children. I love it. Mariko and Logan, aka Weapon X, took different sides following the rise of Apocalypse. Weapon X joined Apocalypse and the side of mutants, while Mariko allied herself with the Human High Council. As such, Kirika was somehow lost and, I don't know, she became the prisoner of Mr. Sinister somehow. She was later retrieved from his labs after Apocalypse's defeat, where she had been labeled as X-23. Kirika has claws like her father and seems to have his superhuman senses as well. Number 1. Raze Darkholme. Raze is the son of Wolverine and Mystique from the alternate reality of Earth 13729. This alternate timeline saw an alternate Wolverine become headmaster of the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. It is also the home to a new brotherhood of evil mutants led by Charles's and Mystique's son, Charles Xavier II, and his half-brother Raze. Raze first appeared impersonating Kitty Pryde in X-Men Battle of the Atom issue number 1 in order to get closer to Wolverine so that he could take him out. We also learned that Raze killed his mother, whom he then took the place of. He has both the combined powers of Wolverine and Mystique, and is even believed to be a more powerful and skilled shapeshifter than his mother. Wow. Number 10. Felicity Hardy. Alas, we have yet to get a child whose parents are Black Cat, aka Felicia Hardy, and Spider-Man, aka Peter Parker. In the PS4 DLC featuring Black Cat for the Spider-Man game, it was alluded that Felicia had maybe had a secret son without informing Peter, and that he was the father. However, this was later revealed to all be a ruse. We got tricked. So far, that seems to be as close as we've gotten to seeing these two have a child together. What we do have though is a daughter of Felicia's who took up the mantle of Scarlet Spider. That's her daughter, Felicity Hardy, who comes to us from Earth 982. She is the daughter of Felicia and Flash Thompson, Peter's good friend and former high school bully. Felicia later leaves Flash and starts a relationship with her work colleague Diana, causing some strain between her and her daughter. Scarlet Spider was trained by her mother, has a brilliant investigative mind, and uses gadgets in order to simulate spider-like abilities while acting as a hero. She wasn't born with any specific powers. She's also a friend and ally of Mayday Parker. Number 9. Maxine Lee. Maxine Lee is like an adopted daughter to Miles Morales in the comic Miles Morales: The End. Well, really more like an adopted but willful niece. She is the daughter of Genki Lee, who in this reality of Earth 13153 became a hero before he died. Genki in the reality of 1610 is known for being Miles' BFF and also made an appearance in Into the Spider-Verse, albeit a kinda small one. I think we were all hoping for more Genki than what we got. Maxine Lee here is his daughter and is the deputy mayor of Brooklyn, while Miles himself is the mayor of New York. He insists Maxine call him Uncle Miles, but she kinda refuses to do so. Number 8. April Parker. April Parker is the clone of May Parker from Earth 982. When May was just a baby, Norman Osborn had her clone. He turned this clone into the first human symbiote hybrid. This was an experiment that was part of a plan to help Norman find a path to immortality, resurrecting himself as a more powerful Green Goblin. Originally, April was a misguided villain who actually didn't really even have a name. She would take up the name April after she reformed and agreed to join the Parker family, creating a cover of being May's cousin, with her name April being a play on May's name, as in the months of the calendar year, April and May, which are right next to one another sequentially. April would take up multiple different mantles, including Mayhem, one she took up in a future where she turned against May but ultimately sacrificed herself in order to save her cousin in the end. Number 7. Spider-Man. This is an alternate version of Jerry Drew from Earth 982. He grew up to become a Spider-Man in his reality after his mother Jessica Drew recreated the experiment that saved her life and gave her powers. She had to, as Jerry was born with a unique blood disorder, apparently being passed on from Jessica during the gestation period in her womb. Her radioactive physiology caused him to be born with this disorder, and when no one from the medical community seemed to have the answer, she turned to the procedure that once saved her life. It gave Jerry powers but didn't cure him, unfortunately. In this reality, Jessica Drew ended up retiring from her superhero life after becoming depowered. She got married and had a son, but later would divorce her husband after the trauma of not being able to cure Jerry caused strain in her relationship. Number 6. Tonya Barton. Before she was married to Clint Barton, she was Tonya Parker, and actually, she went back to being Tonya Parker after her and Barton separated. She was Clint's third wife, if you can believe it, and the youngest daughter of Spider-Man in the reality of Earth 807128. We don't know who her mother was or who her sisters were, but we do know she had sisters. She was the mother to Ashley Barton, Peter's granddaughter, who in the Old Man universe would end up taking over Kingpin's area known as Hammer Falls, and would later team up with other multiversal spider totems in the fight against the Inheritors. Ashley's pretty cool. Tonya herself is a master mechanic and perhaps even has a knack for robotics. It's implied anyways. Number 5. Stepford Cuckoos. Also known as the 5-in-1 if you prefer. The Stepford Cuckoos are basically like Emma Frost's daughters, although they weren't born naturally and were initially planted in the school that she was running at the time, I believe to kind of be used against her, so initially it was kind of like an adversarial thing. Now, however, they are allied with their mum, Emma. The Stepford Cuckoos you see are actually clones of Emma Frost that were created using her own eggs, which were harvested from Emma back when she was in a comatose state and then used for experimentation. The Stepford Cuckoos were some of the results of those experiments. They have powers similar to Emma Frost, their mother, but they also all share a consciousness as well, which at times can make them stronger or weaker depending on their circumstances. Sometimes as well, it's implied that because there's 5 of them, their power is kind of split between the 5, so it's like they're each not quite as strong as Emma would be, but together, collectively, they are as strong as Emma. Also, if you mess with either Celeste, Irma, Esme, Sophie, or Phoebe, you'll likely also have to deal with Emma Frost too, who is very protective of them, which I think is a power of sorts in and of itself. Number 4. Nova. Nova is Sam Alexander. Being that he is cosmic in origin, you know he's one of the most powerful people on this list. He carries on the legacy of Nova and the Nova Corps, which hail originally from Xandar, which is also why when Xandar was sadly destroyed during Infinity War, so many of us were heartbroken, as we feared this meant we'd never see a Nova in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. However, there is still hope, as a few Nova Corps could have survived. At least, that's what I'm telling myself in my headcanon, so that I can theorize that we will get a Nova at some point. Please give us a Nova, MCU. I would love it. Sam inherited his power from his father, Jesse Alexander, who was formerly known, of course, as Nova. His Nova helmet is what really grants him his powers, as it connects him to the Nova Force, giving him him great knowledge, power, and of course durability. Number 3. Green Lantern. There have been a ton of Green Lanterns to carry on the legacy of the Corps, but in the last few years, one of the newest legacy heroes we've been introduced to via the Green Lanterns is Jo Malene, which if you've been around on this channel you know that Jo is one of my favorite Green Lanterns right now. Jo is the Green Lantern who appears in the series Far Sector, where she is also the main character. Like lanterns before her, she comes with her own Green Lantern ring, which allows her to create light constructs. Malene's ring is also unique in the sense that it doesn't actually need a battery to charge, instead being capable of self-charging. However, this is also kind of a weakness, as it means that Jo needs to ration out her ring's juice at times to make sure she is using her power wisely, as it does take time for her ring to self-charge, so she needs to wait quite a while if she runs it down to 0. Number 2. Skaar. Skaar is the son of the Hulk and his bride and queen Kiera, who once ruled over the planet Sakaar. Skaar was actually abandoned by his father as a baby, but this was only because Hulk actually thought that he had died, along with many others on the planet of Sakaar. Seeking vengeance for the destruction of his newfound home, Hulk returned to Earth. Skaar would grow up fighting for survival on Sakaar and eventually would wind up on Earth while separated from his homeworld. He isn't the most altruistic of heroes, but this is basically because Skaar grew up having it so rough. At first he wanted to kill his father, but eventually through bonding with Bruce Banner, when he could not Hulk up at that time, he was able to bury the hatchet, at least somewhat. Skaar not only has immense strength and durability like his father, but he also possesses the old power. Number 1. Starbrand. The current Starbrand might be young, but make no mistake, she is still mighty. Starbrand is Brandy Selby, the daughter of the previous Starbrand. She had her mother's power passed on to her shortly after she was born, as her mother had died. Brandy was taken in by the Avengers, who basically kinda acted as like her group foster parents after coming across her mother and of course Brandy. Recently in the comics, Brandy was shown to be at quite a difficult stage in her upbringing, where she really seemed to be enjoying challenging the authority of those who raised her. At some point, her powers also allowed her to rapidly age herself, so now instead of being a small child, she's depicted as a young woman. Number 10. Ben Parker. Ben and May, by the way, are going to be names you'll get familiar with on this list, so to start off with each point, I'm going to try to clarify just which Ben and which May we're talking about. This Ben is from the Spider-Man Limited series written by J.J. Abrams and his son Henry. It's known as the 2019 Just Spider-Man series, or Spider-Man Volume 3. Here Ben was a young boy when his mother Mary Jane Watson was murdered by the villain known as Cadaverous. His father Peter, distraught, retired as Spider-Man and abandoned his son, leaving him to be raised by what should be a super elderly Aunt May at this point. Aunt May raised Ben as she had Peter and eventually gave him his father's costume, which he then wore to impress his classmate Faye Ito, or Ito Faye, depending on how you want to say it, Japanese way or American way. But when Cadaverous resurfaced, Ben also wore this suit to fight against him, possessing the same powers as his dad. Number 9. May Parker. This May Parker comes to us from Universe X, from the reality of Earth 1122. She first appeared in Universe X issue X. Yep, weird lettered issue. I don't like that. Her past is similar to that of another alternate daughter of Spidey's, but with one possible difference. It's implied that she is actually the daughter of clone Ben Reilly and not Peter himself. Her mother is Mary Jane, however, implying that Ben and MJ maybe had a thing, maybe while she was with Peter? We don't really know. She has similar powers to that of Spider-Man and ends up joining X-51's superhero team composed of different heroes from alternate realities known as the Heralds. You can check out the Heralds team in the Paradise X Herald series. Number 8. Spider-Woman. Ashley Barton is technically Spider-Man's granddaughter, but is still a grandchild of his, so still a child of Spider-Man. See what I did? And she is super cool, so I had to include her. She made her first appearance in 2003's Wolverine series issue 67 and comes to us from the Old Man Logan universe of Earth 807128. She is the daughter of Peter Parker's youngest daughter, Tonya, and Hawkeye. Yeah, try not to focus too much on the potential age difference there. Feels a little wince-inducing. Ashley attempted to take over Hammer Falls and usurp Kingpin's rule there, but she was captured. Old Man Hawkeye later rescued her, only for her to try and kill him, surprisingly. She appears to have powers similar to those of Spider-Man. It's kind of a weird point to finish it on, but whatever, Amanda, that's what you wrote. Number 7. Richie Parker. Richie Parker comes to us from the House of M reality. We've seen 2 different versions of him from different realities, and it's implied that Richard Parker II would grow up to exhibit superpowers similar to his father's, potentially even being able to produce organic webbing in addition to Peter's usual power set. Rather than being the son of Mary Jane and Peter, Richie is the son of Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker. There is a version of him with powers in What If Spider-Man House of M issue number 1, and a little baby version of him in the series Spider-Man House of M. Number 6. Venom. This May Parker comes to us from the reality of Earth 9997. That would be the universe of Earth X. She first appeared in 1999's Earth X series in issue number 1. She is also the daughter of Peter Parker and Mary Jane, like so many of these kids. However, her mother died of cancer when she was younger. Her powers manifested when she was just a teen and are similar to her father's, but May also has the powers granted to her by the alien symbiote known as Venom, whom she is bonded to. Initially, the Venom symbiote sought her out after leaving an elderly Eddie Brock, hoping to continue its vengeful pursuits against May's father and turn her against him. May's willpower and spider sense proved too powerful for the symbiote though, and so its plan did not work. Instead, she bent the being to her will and used the symbiote for her own heroic means. But she still goes by the name Venom, which I like. Number 5. Invincible. Invincible might have a slight edge on Superman, although I think this would be quite a close race between them. Invincible might not appear as impervious as John Kent is, but the fact he has known and overcome great struggles actually might be a mega strength for him, at least in my opinion. And while John may have more powers on paper, Mark seemingly has less overt weaknesses. Sure, he has sound and the Klaxus plant, which is possibly a part of the virus that wiped out the Viltrumites, but I would still argue that these aren't as well known or as deadly as kryptonite is to Kryptonians. Well, other than of course that virus maybe, which obviously is quite deadly. That will kill you. But even then, Mark managed to survive that virus too, so hey, he can still be hurt and killed. He isn't invulnerable in the same way John is. Still, Invincible is not only carrying on the legacy of his dad Omni-Man, who is sometimes a villain, but at the end of the day comes back to the side of overall heroism. But he is also just a super cool hero who manages to survive a lot of crazy stuff. For that reason, I gotta consider him stronger, because I feel like even when the odds are super against Mark, he still manages to somehow come out on top. I feel like John doesn't experience that as much. I could be wrong. I'm not as familiar with John Kent, but hey. Number 4. Power Girl. Although some may think of Power Girl as being more Superman adjacent, like her alternate self Supergirl, in her reality of Earth 2, Kara's story differed from her main continuity counterpart, causing her to actually fill the role of Superman as opposed to working alongside him. This is because the Superman of Earth 2 ends up dead during Infinite Crisis. So while prior to that Power Girl may have worked alongside her cousin Kal-El, she inevitably ends up taking over for him instead as a result of his death, in essence carrying on his legacy as her world's premier Kryptonian superhero, Power Girl. Oddly enough, this might also be what helps to make Huntress of Earth 2 and Power Girl such close friends. They're both legacy heroes who have suffered loss and aim to carry on and uphold the legacy of their deceased relatives. Number 3. Doctor Doom. Doom is one of the most powerful characters around when it comes to the Marvel Universe, but he is oftentimes considered a villain. So, how does he make our cut? Well, that has to do with the fact that Doom actually at one point was considered a legacy hero for Iron Man, if you can believe that. This all went down after Tony became comatose following a fight with Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel in Civil War II. In theory, Tony really won the Civil War but was also taken out by Danvers in the end, as he lay in a comatose state with the chance that he may never recover. Spoiler alert, he did recover though. A few heroes rose up to take his place. One was his young protege Riri Williams, who took up the codename of Ironheart and was guided by an AI replica of Tony Stark. The other was Doctor Doom, who became known as infamous Iron Man, at least editorially. He actually proved to be a pretty unstoppable force as a hero and was someone a lot of powerful villains did not want to mess with, as they knew his reputation from working alongside him during his time as a villain. They were like, I know what Doctor Doom is like and I do not want to mess with him. Is there any way we can come together and get rid of this guy, because he's gonna be a problem. Number 2. Hope Summers. Hope Summers isn't known by the codename of Cable, but she is his adopted daughter, and for that reason is considered someone who could fill his shoes. She was one I considered giving the top spot on this list even. That is how powerful she is. Hope Summers was born and known as a baby to be the mutant Messiah, the firstborn mutant following the events of House of M and M-Day. Because of this, she was widely sought after, with some, like Bishop, believing she was destined to bring about their doom, and others, like Cable, believing that she was destined to be their savior. The fact that Cable and Bishop come from different timelines likely influencing sharing those thoughts, feelings, and experiences with the future Hope Summers. Hope is a mutant whose powers allow her to adopt those of the powers around her. Unlike Rogue, she does not need direct physical contact to take on someone's powers, and she doesn't drain their power or life force energy. When Hope adopts someone's powers, she's actually able to use them at their highest level without needing to first train with the powers and learn how to master them. She basically just becomes a default auto expert. Number 1. The Flash. The Flash is one of the most powerful heroes in comics, and Wally West isn't just a legacy hero carrying the mantle of the Flash following in his uncle Barry Allen's footsteps, but he also happens to be even faster than Barry, which makes him pretty insane when it comes to power levels. Wally West is probably also my favorite Flash, and I love super speed and I think it's insanely powerful and resourceful when it comes to what you can accomplish with it. So of course, I have to pay respect and give Wally West my top spot on this list. While Barry Allen has made a lot of messes that he had to use his powers to get him out of, Wally typically doesn't make a ton of messes, or at least, he doesn't make as many. He just gets things done. Well, of course, minus the tragedy at Sanctuary during Heroes in Crisis anyways, but that was a sad time for Wally West. That was a rough time. We can't blame Wally, okay? He was going through some stuff. Number 10. Sir-El. Sir-El originally believed she was Kal-El's daughter. She told Superman as much, believing she was the daughter of him and Lois Lane from the future. A genetic test would reveal that she was telling the truth in part, and genetically was Superman's daughter. In reality, it would later be revealed that she was actually created by Brainiac to bring about the end of the world. He created her using Superman's genetic material and implanted her with the Yes virus, a techno-organic virus that when unleashed would allow him to rule the world. She was also designed to be strong enough to defeat Superman. Brainiac had also intended to use Sir-El to destroy his nemesis. Once she learned of this, she decided to erase herself from existence in order to protect the world and her pseudo-father, Superman. Number 9. Summers Twins. The Summers Twins are the children of Emma Frost and Scott Summers. They have a bit of a Cuckoo's vibe to them, but also have darker eyes and freckles than the Cuckoos, resembling Emma a little less and Scott a little more. They have psionic powers which allow them to create solid psionic objects similar to Psylocke's weapons. In the reality of Earth 41001, which they originate from, they are not the only children of Emma and Scott either. Their mother is very protective of both of them, as well as all of her and Scott's children. In this reality, Scott and Emma are actually married. Number 8. Ur-Zod. Ur-Zod comes to us from the Justice Lord's universe. He was created to be the perfect genetic heir to the throne of Earth, and to help usher in an era of peace after years of war. He was created using the genetic material of Wonder Woman and Lord Superman, but is considered to be somewhat weaker in terms of power levels than his parents. Originally, Brainiac got a hold of Ur-Zod, planning to use and raise him as his own weapon of destruction. Fortunately, he was saved by Superman from the Batman Beyond universe and taken in by their Justice League. While his inherited powers might not be as strong as his parents, Ur-Zod also has the unique ability of being able to control technology, which would prove useful later on in his fight against Brainiac. Man, Brainiac's always making all these fake children. Or well, I guess he didn't make this one, but he wanted to mold it. Brainiac's always up to no good. That's what I'm learning from this list. Number 7. Megan Summers. Megan Summers is the telepathic daughter of both Scott Summers and Emma Frost. She is from the reality of Earth 41001, where they are married. She is the older sister to the Summers twins we talked about earlier, and her youngest sibling Alex, named after the deceased Uncle Alex, aka Havoc. She also studied at the Xavier Institute and was training to become a hero like her parents before her. Number 6. Ariella Kent. Ariella Kent is the daughter of Linda Danvers, formerly Supergirl, and Earth 1 Superman. Ariella lived happily with her parents, presumably until the Spectre informed Linda that she needed to return to her own parallel reality. If you're wondering if it's creepy that Supergirl and Superman have a child together in an alternate timeline, it kinda is if you just hear that without context, but with context it really isn't that creepy. Linda Danvers is not a Supergirl who is related at all to Clark Kent, not even in her own reality, and even if she had been, which she isn't, this Clark Kent was actually from a different alternate Earth altogether. So no, they're not related. After Linda returned to her reality, Spectre agreed to allow her daughter to live. Ariella, as a 6-year-old girl, was supremely powerful, but didn't have the maturity to wield her powers wisely, because she's just a little kid. She was capable of time travel and mostly traveled through space, playing and unknowingly creating mass destruction wherever she went. That's what happens when you're a kid that is that powerful. You just play with planets and blow them up. Yikes. Number 5. Nate Gray. Nate Gray is the son of Scott and Jean, who was raised by Forge, who basically became his foster father. Scott and Jean never really knew of their relation to Nate when he was born, as he was created by Mr. Sinister to be the perfect psionic mutant. Sinister created him using the genetic material of both Jean Grey and Scott Summers. Mr. Sinister just has all that genetic material. Nate did end up becoming the perfect psionic mutant and is known for being one of the most powerful mutants around. At one point, he was even seen as being a mutant Jesus, being known for a time by the mantle of the Second Coming. He has been shown using his powers to heal and even resurrect people on occasion, as well as warp reality. He also is believed to be a potential avatar of the Phoenix Force due to his ties to Jean Grey and his immense power. Nate also has a telepathic link to his alternate reality brother, Nathan Summers. Number 4. Kara Kent Wayne. Kara was the daughter of Superman and Lois from the same alternate Earth of 3839, born 3 years after her brother. She herself had superpowers similar to her father's, though weaker due to her hybrid human and Kryptonian physiology. Kara would grow up to become a hero and take up the mantle Supergirl, and ended up falling in love with the newest Batman, who was actually Bruce Wayne Jr., the son of the original Batman. Bruce Jr. took up the mantle of Batman following the previous Batman, Dick Grayson's, death. At Kara's wedding, her brother Joel showed up, having received powers from the serum Lex Luthor had given him, and attacked his family, killing Kara. Number 3. Young Cable. Who is this young kid? I thought Cable was an old grizzled man like we saw in Deadpool 2. If that's what you're thinking, well, you're not wrong, but also you kinda are wrong. There are in essence sorta 2 Cables, but there's only one Nathan Summers. Sort of. I mean, it's complicated. Basically, young Cable is old Cable, but from his own past. Young Cable, however, killed himself, older Cable, and in essence replaced him in the comics. While he's technically the same character just from his own past, he's also kind of a very different person as he's at a different stage in his life. In essence, Cable closed his own time loop when he killed himself, which a lot of people hated as they figured, how would Cable not see that coming, and also, they miss old Cable. But of course, all of that confusion was explained. In essence, old Cable knew it was coming, but he also knew because of his past that it kinda had to happen, so yeah. Confusing. Anyways, young Cable is the current main Cable in the Dawn of X line, who is basically a loudmouth, gun-obsessed, cocky kid who loves a good fight, especially if he gets to protect innocent people along the way, or it makes him look badass in front of the ladies. He has dated a bunch of younger mutants already in the comics, but is currently in a relationship with all 5 of the Cuckoos, much to Emma Frost's displeasure. Just watching you, young Cable. Number 2. Hyperman. Hyperman is the son of Wonder Woman and Superman from the Kingdom Come reality. Here, Hyperman as a baby was raised by Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman. However, he was then later stolen away by a villain named Gog, who intended to raise the infant to become a villain. Fortunately, the present day and alternate Kingdom Come future counterparts of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman managed to team up to defeat Gog with the added babysitting assistance of Baby John himself from the future, where he is revealed to be the hero known as Hyperman. Hyperman ends up being a hero who has the combined powers of both of his parents and also has the ability to time travel. Number 1. Old Cable. Or just Cable, really. We can just call him Cable. This was the original Cable, a man who was once baby Christopher, the son of Madeline Pryor and Scott Summers, and then grew up to become Nathan Summers. He was infected with the techno-organic virus by Apocalypse, but was later saved by both his adoptive mother, Jean Grey, and his biological father, Scott Summers, with some help from the Inhumans as well. Jean at this point was kinda also like Nathan's mother, and Madeline was out of the picture, having gone insane and become the Goblin Queen after she learned she was a clone of Jean created by Mr. Sinister. Jean was given memories of raising the baby that basically gave her a natural motherly instinct and attachment to the child, although I don't really know why that was necessary. She could have likely raised this baby as her son without needing those memories, but anyways, yes, Jean was also pretty much his mother. After saving the baby, Cyclops and Jean were faced with a hard decision in order to save the baby's life. They decided to send him with Sister Ascani, and they actually would see him again, in the future and the past, and pretty much all throughout and around their timeline and alternate timelines besides. Adult Nathan Summers, Cable, would also at one point become the one responsible for saving his own father's life. Number 10. Charlene Xavier. Charlene is only mentioned in passing, but she seems to be the descendant of Xavier from an alternate future explored in the comic Wolverine and the X-Men in issue 29. Her name Charlene is believed to be meant to pay tribute to potentially her father, Charles, Charlene being the feminine version of the masculine name Charles. She is one of the many mutants named who seems to be a child of some other famous mutants in X-Men, including Carmen Drake, Rose Logan, and Summer Gray. Charlene was one of the candidates for Homecoming Queen in this issue. Number 9. Takeo Sasaki. Sasaki appears in the Marvel Anime alternate universe of Earth 101001. He is the son of Charles Xavier and Yui Sasaki. Takeo was shielded by a device his mother created, which helped to prevent others from being alerted to his mutant presence. She attempted to find a cure for her son's powerful reality warping abilities, but was unable to do so before the Hellfire Club found Takeo and attempted to use his powers to take control. Takeo proved too powerful, however, and lost control of his powers and then killed those who attempted to manipulate him. In the end, he was defeated by his father Professor X, with his body turning to light and fading away. Number 8. Alana Naramani. Alana Naramani is the tyrant who rules the futuristic planet Earth in the year 2018, as seen in the comic Team X-2000. In this alternate reality, she is the daughter of Lilandra and Charles Xavier. A powerful telepath and inspiring but heartless leader, she led an attack on her own mother and father, killing them. Following that, she took over, commanding the populace to pay tribute to her and acknowledge her as their one true ruler. In the end, the last resistance group was an underground group of mutants and rebels referred to as the Morlocks, a familiar term which had now come to mean something slightly different. Number 7. Xavi Xavier. Xavi is the alternate child of Lilandra and Charles Xavier, who appeared in the comic X-Men The End from the early 2000s. On the alternate reality of Earth 41001, Charles and Lilandra had a son who was kept secret from Professor X due to the fact that his and Lilandra's marriage was annulled. Lilandra ended up being killed by Xavier's evil twin sister Cassandra Nova, who then possessed Xavi's body before Xavi himself also died. It's believed he also possesses powerful psionic abilities similar to his father's. Number 6. Legion. This alternate version of David Haller comes to us from the Age of X reality of Earth 11326, and I gotta say, I like his style. He was the son of Charles Xavier, but after his father's death was raised by Moira Kinross, his stepmother. He was a powerful telekinetic mutant in this reality, but this version of David did not possess any of the other abilities or split personalities we are used to seeing that give Legion his name in the main continuity of 616. Although even in this reality, that is David Haller's codename. I must say, I do enjoy his look as well. I like that mohawk, I like those pants, looks like a fighter to me. Number 5. David Xavier. David Xavier is an alternate version of Proteus who belonged to the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610. This version of Proteus was not the son of Joseph and Moira McTaggart, but instead was the son of Charles Xavier and Moira in this reality. His powers manifested shortly after Professor X abandoned his family to join Magneto in founding the Brotherhood of Mutants. David's mutant abilities were extremely powerful, but using them also depleted his life energy and destroyed his body, meaning he was forced to hop from host to host. For the first little while, Moira was able to prevent this happening by keeping him sedated, but eventually David escaped his mother's care. David possessed Wolverine while attempting to get back at his father for abandoning him and for what he felt was a lack of affection, thinking this was an ideal body for his spirit due to Wolverine's healing factor. In the end, David found himself forced out of this body and jumped to Betsy Braddock's body, tormenting his father before Colossus eventually killed him and Betsy's physical form. Number 4. Charles Xavier II. The Charles Xavier II most of us know is actually from the alternate Earth of 13729. Charles is the son of Mystique and Professor X here, although there also exists a version of him in the Earth 616 continuity. Or there was anyway, until that baby version of him was erased when Matthew Malloy was removed from existence, altering the entire timeline. In the reality where Charles Xavier II still lives, he rebelled against the current X-Men team, who he believed had become a disgrace to his father's memory. This prompted him to team up with his half-brother Reyes, the son of Mystique and Wolverine, to create a new brotherhood. Charles II then used his powerful telepathic abilities to control the minds of various mutants, forcing them to join their brotherhood. Number 3. Xandra Naramani. Xandra is the daughter of Charles Xavier and Magistrix Lilandra. Yeah, I know. Pretty crazy and oddly impressive that Charles managed to be with such a strong and accomplished woman as Lilandra, Magistrix of the Shi'ar Empire. I'm not usually one for rulers, as power in my experience does have a tendency to corrupt, but even this she-devil knows how to recognize another powerful woman and knows well enough enough to revere her. Xandra, being half human, half Shi'ar, was born of her parents' genetic material following both of their supposed deaths. She was later born from an egg. Xandra is an immensely powerful telepath and is destined as Naramani to become the leader of the Shi'ar Empire. Number 2. Cyclops. While Scott might not be Charles's biological son, Charles was like a father to him. Being without my own father as Red Sonja, I know what that loss must have felt like for Scott, and it makes me smile to think Scott at least did not have to wander through the world young and alone. Eventually. Because he was alone for a while. Except for Mr. Sinister. I don't think you want to be alone with Mr. Sinister though. Though of course later on Scott and his brother Alex and even their youngest brother Gabriel would reconnect with their biological father Corsair, growing up Charles was very much like an adoptive father to Scott. Scott's power first manifested when he was a teenager living at the State Home for Foundlings Orphanage. His powers were how Professor Charles Xavier found him and ended up being able to save him from the villain known as Jack O'Diamonds. Young Scott would then end up going to live at the X-Mansion and become the first student at Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, as well as becoming the first member of the X-Men team. Number 1. Legion. When you think of Charles Xavier's son, one of the first people that likely comes to your mind is David Haller. He's not a great fighter and he suffers from a lot of mental distress due to him having tons of split personalities, which really doesn't speak kindly as to what kind of father Charles was to him. Legion is known for his many personalities, each of which possesses their own unique mutant power. His personalities often take hold of him and control him. At one point his father attempted to help Legion by erasing these other personalities, but that didn't end great as David's mind rebelled against this treatment. Although it did initially seem to be helping, Legion is often known for being a villain because he is so tormented and lashes out as a result. Legion is the son of Charles Xavier and Gabrielle Haller, a Holocaust survivor who was under Charles's care, and during that time the two fell in love. Number 10. X-Baby. This alternate baby comes to us from the short stories that make up X-Millennial Visions 2000. Here in the story titled Bringing Up Baby, we learn of a son that Jean and Scott both have together in this alternate future. The story shares a conversation the two have, an argument regarding Jean being pregnant. She wants to keep the baby, Scott is contemplating them not having the baby, considering all the problems that then could arise from that. What if something happened? What if he just isn't ready? He's scared, and considering his track record with this kind of situation, I can't say I blame him. Jean keeps pressing though. What if their child has superpowers and can defend themselves? Look at Reed Richards and Sue Storm. They are both heroes and parents. It could work. The next page shows a picture of their son that I guess they agreed to have, who seems to have his father's eyes and his mother's telekinetic powers even as a baby. Their parents look on, slightly amazed and terrified. I feel like raising a super baby would be really hard. Also, where did they get those X-Men brand diapers? Number 9. Van-El. Van-El comes to us from the famous Superman story For the Man Who Has Everything. He was a non-powered son of Superman who existed in Superman's sweetest dreams. Superman experienced these dreams after being exposed to an alien parasitic organism known as the Black Mercy. It drains its victims' life energy while giving them pleasant, hallucinogenic dreams. In Superman's dreams, Krypton was never destroyed and he still lived there. He was married and had a son named Von-El. Technically, if they were on Earth, Von-El would likely have powers similar to Superman, but because he and Kal-El were on Krypton, where there is no yellow sun to power either of them, they were both just normal, like other Kryptonians. Number 8. Strife. Strife is the evil clone of Cable, who is the biological offspring of Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor. He was created to be a fail-safe child should the young baby Nathan die, succumbing to the techno-organic virus that plagued him. Creating this clone who would grow up to become Strife was the decision of Mother Askani, who knew of baby Nathan's prophesied importance. Strife was also brought into the world with the same techno-organic virus that plagued his twin, but as Clan Askani were present for his entire growth cycle, they were able to actually minimize the infection, reducing the risk of it becoming lethal. Both children ended up surviving, but shortly after Apocalypse busted in and the Askani were only able to save one of the two babies. The baby they saved was actually the true son of Scott, Nathan Summers. Apocalypse thought he had captured baby Cable, but he'd actually retrieved his clone, Strife, instead. Strife as such was raised by Apocalypse to become his powerful weapon and potentially become the perfect body for Apocalypse to transfer himself into in the future. He was also pretty much raised raised to be evil, so yeah. Number 7. Lara Lane Kent. Lara Kent is the unborn daughter of Lois Lane and Superman in the Injustice universe. In a dream that Superman has during year 3, we get to see what her life would have been like had that fateful day gone differently for Superman and he hadn't been made to kill his wife and unborn daughter. In this alternate dream reality, Lara is raised by both her parents, her first word notably being mom. When her powers begin to manifest, she is taught by her father and his friends on the Justice League about how to use them. Lara at one point as a young adult looks down at the Earth with her father from space and wonders if the fighting and crime will ever stop. Her dad tells her that they could, if they wished, use their powers to enforce order to save the humans of Earth from themselves, forcing them to have peace. But Lara teases her dad, responding that he sounds like a B-grade villain saying that. Instead, Lara ends up working as an ambassador for the League, helping everyday people to learn how to fight for themselves, instead of just always continuing to have superheroes fighting for them. Number 6. Ruby Summers. Ruby Summers is the daughter of Scott Summers and Emma Frost, and comes from the alternate reality that is also the home reality of Bishop, Earth 1191. Ruby ended up being named by Layla Miller herself, who suggested the name to both her parents. Her mother in this reality is dead, but Scott is still alive, although he is part cyborg in this alternate future reality. Ruby also becomes motivated by Layla to continue the dream of the X-Men and fight for mutant freedom. Her powers are similar to her father's, but she has full control over her optic blasts. She can shapeshift into her Ruby form, which is similar to her mother's Diamond form, and while in this form she does not age, nor does she require food or water to survive. Number 5. Joel Kent. Joel Kent comes to us from Earth 3839. There he was the son of Superman and Lois Lane. However, while Lois was pregnant with Joel, she was exposed to gold kryptonite by the villains Joker and Lex Luthor. This caused her son to be born without any powers. Lex used Joel's shame to his advantage, claiming that Joel's father was the one responsible for this. Lex said that Superman had exposed his unborn son to gold kryptonite on purpose, fearful that his son would become even more great than him. This seeming revelation caused Joel to become more detached from his family, thinking of Lex as more of a father than his own father. He also became more cruel over time. Eventually he became a villain to his family, accepting a serum that Lex said would restore his powers. Number 4. Mother Askani. Mother Askani is Rachel Summers, but from an alternate timeline. Although Rachel has been explained in the comics as being unique when it comes to kind of her alternates. She doesn't so much have alternate versions of herself, more that there are like different aspects of herself scattered throughout various realities and time, but Rachel is kind of always Rachel. She's both all there is and then kind of so much more than that. It's confusing, but it's also what makes her cool. This version of Rachel came into her own state of being after she sacrificed herself to save Captain Britain. Becoming lost in the time stream, she ended up in an alternate future in the 37th century where Apocalypse had taken over the planet 100 years prior. She developed the clan Askani and would be the one to give the order for Sister Askani to help save the prophesied Messiah referred to as Askani's son or Dayspring, which would end up being her alternate timeline brother, Nathan Summers. So many alternate timeline siblings. Hard to keep track of all this traveling through time and alternate realities. Number 3. Jonathan Lane Kent. I love that throughout Superman stories we get to see how powerfully good the super family can be and how powerfully evil they can potentially be as well. Bottom line, either way you slice it, they're powerful. John Lane Kent is the son of Superman and Lois Lane from an alternate future. It was believed that he had died due to an irreparable medical issue with his DNA. Shockingly, it was later revealed that the villain Harvest managed to actually save John, taking his body to the past and resurrecting him. Harvest had his own plans for what John would become and turned him into a villain, using him as a weapon to destroy all metahumans. John is more powerful than his father, sharing his powers, but also possessing the ability to turn invisible. It's later revealed that the original Superboy, Kon-El, was basically a clone of John and not Superman like we originally thought. Shocking. Number 2. Rachel Summers. Rachel has got to be one of the most confusing of the Summers children, and I say that fully acknowledging all the confusing stuff that we just talked about, including the stuff with Cable. While there is the version of Rachel Summers that became Mother Askani, there is also multiple other versions of her besides, especially as her splitting into separate entities is literally a part of sort of Mother Askani's story. Anyways, this Rachel Summers is from the alternate Earth of 811, and for most people is considered considered the Rachel Summers, the main one. Here, she was born to Jean and Scott after Jean had bonded with the Phoenix Force and ended up living after having the confrontation with the Shi'ar. Rachel didn't just inherit her mother's extraordinary telepathic and telekinetic powers though, she also inherited the Phoenix Force itself, part of which resided within her, allowing her to use its power whenever she needed. She was friends with Franklin Richards and lived peacefully in her reality until the anti-mutant Senator Kelly was killed. This ended up resulting in pandemonium and public panic, which resulted in the death of her mother and her father, as well as an apocalyptic future where all superhuman beings were essentially captured or killed. Rachel's powers allow her to manipulate time and travel through it, which was kinda how she ended up in the reality of Earth 616. Number 1. Jonathan Samuel Kent, or just John Kent if you will. This is Superman and Lois Lane's child who was born during the events of Convergence. He grew up without really ever knowing the truth of who his parents were, growing up relatively normal but suspicious of what his parents really did. The Kents changed their name to the Whites, escaping the fate of their dying universe and taking up residence on the new Prime Earth, trying to raise John normally and not get in the way of their alternate selves in this new world. Lois still worked as a writer and journalist, but publishing her works under the pseudonym Author X, and Superman kept his superheroic activities under wraps and secretive, going out at night and appearing as a shadow of Superman, as this world kinda already had their own Kal-El. Eventually, the New 52 Superman died, and so the Whites became the Kents once more, and stepped into their usual roles once again. John's powers manifested when he first hit puberty, discovering his laser vision when he accidentally killed the family cat. Shortly afterward, he would take up the mantle Superboy and become a hero alongside his father, starting a rivalry and later a friendship with Batman's son, Damian Wayne. But that's all behind him now, as he went to space, grew up quickly, and now he's a member of the Legion of Superheroes and goes on adventures in the future. Because comics.
Coming in at number 10 we have Jerry Drew. Jessica Drew, otherwise known as Spider-Woman, decided that she would take a break from trying to save the world and focus on building up a family. Well, it turns out the world wanted that to be hard for her too. After the baby was born, it was extremely sick. Since spider people normally get their powers from an irradiated spider, just like Jessica did, they have irradiated blood. This exposure to radiation caused her baby to be very sick, and doctors couldn't find any way to help out the poor boy. This left everything up to Spider-Woman to try and fix the problem. She came up with a cure for her own powers in hopes that this would cure her son of this horrible sickness, and turns out that it unlocked all of his spider abilities. But unfortunately, this didn't cure him from being incredibly ill, but he could still survive with his newfound strength. He would later become Spider-Boy, a young whippersnapper addition to the Spider family. Coming in at number 9 we have Thunderstrike. Eric Masterson was a powerful hero known as Thunderstrike. He was the wielder of a powerful Asgardian weapon, and in some ways it was similar to Mjolnir, but he would fall the sad fate that some heroes are met with, and that is of course dying. In the time of him missing Thunderstrike's son, Kevin Masterson would step in as the new hero that everyone needed, and in this time he would have the added edge that his father didn't. The Valkyrie Grunhilda would come down to Earth to teach the young hero how to use his mighty weapon so he wouldn't end up the same way that his father did. Kevin, running around now as Thunderstrike, would be able to become such a powerful hero that there was a time when Thor was nowhere to be found and Kevin stepped in to fill his spot. That's pretty gnarly. You have to be one bad dude to be able to come in and take the spot of the God of Thunder. Of course, when Thor came back, he was like, sorry kid, but I'm the only God of Thunder around here. And guys, make sure you hit that like button because it really helps us out. Is Modi Thorson. When you're one of the most powerful gods to ever walk the 9 realms, there are going to be a few people who want to have a baby with you. When Thor was trapped in hell, he wanted to get out, and the goddess Hela said she would do it, but for a price, and she wanted Thor to give her a baby. And Thor thought this deal wasn't half bad, so he agreed to impregnate Hela in order to be released from hell. This all went off without a hitch, and then after a few weeks, a child just showed up in Asgard, and Thor didn't really know what to do with this kid, and there was a massive war that was about to kick off with the Children of Tomorrow. So Thor didn't have time to protect a kid, teach a kid, and fight off the Children of Tomorrow. So Thor did what any good dad would do and locked his son away in a room with Mjolnir. That way when he was worthy, he would be able to break out of the room that he was locked away in. Seems like a smart parenting plan. So time flowed faster in the room, so after a couple weeks, Modi Thorson was a full-grown man and could now wield Mjolnir. Jr. He burst out of the room, he hated his dad, and then he tried to destroy America to build a new Asgard, and he had some pretty intense magical powers. Coming at number 7, we have X-23. No, technically not a child. Wolverine didn't impregnate someone to make X-23, but he has definitely raised her as a daughter, and he has an emotional attachment to her as if she was his own flesh and blood, which she is just not in the traditional sense. X-23 is of course the clone of Wolverine, who was built for one reason and one reason only: to be a tool of death. She has Wolverine's same powers and has been trained in hand-to-hand combat in ways that rival even Wolverine himself. She also constantly struggles with the fact that she was made as a weapon. The people who made her see her as property and can use her for whatever nefarious purposes they want, but of course Laura Kinney, also known as X-23, is a person and doesn't want to be treated like someone's property. I don't know if the people making her ever thought that she would take after her father. Like maybe it was a bad idea to clone the dude who you tried to turn into a weapon before and then rebelled against you and has been fighting against you ever since he escaped. Who would have thought that his clone would do pretty much the exact same thing? Coming in at number 6, we have Hope Summers. The aptly named Hope was the first mutant to make it into existence after the world was hit with the tragic event known as M-Day. This of course was the day that nearly all of the mutants were wiped from Earth, and it would seem that no mutant would ever be born again. Once this girl was alive, she showed immense levels of power. She was able to bust Rogue out of a coma, and it would seem that this new mutant would be the target for everyone who either wanted mutants dead or who wanted to direct the future of mutant kind. So Cable takes the child to the future where she can grow up in secret and train with one of the greatest warriors of all time. She would later come back with a strong understanding of her powers. Hope Summers has the ability to mimic other mutants' powers and even use them more powerful than the original host. So she basically has the power to show you up at your own game. She'd be like, oh yeah, you have eye lasers? Well, I'll just beat you at your own game with these eye lasers that are even stronger than yours. Hope is also an Omega level mutant, and some think that she could be responsible for the dystopian future that so many of the time travelers are afraid of. Coming in at number 5, we have James Hudson Jr. Well, it turns out that getting another super healing mutant with claws and bloodlust that can't be matched can be created in more ways than just cloning. James Hudson Jr. is the son of Wolverine, and this guy is a badass. This was a little bit of a sneaky move pulled off by the spy Magda. She stole a serum that would guarantee that a baby would come out as a mutant. She then juiced herself up with the serum and then found Wolverine, and the two got hot and heavy. Magda got pregnant, and once she gave birth to a baby, she found Wolverine and was like, hey dude, here's her kid, and left the kid with Wolverine. And I think it's safe to say that Wolverine wouldn't be the best dad ever, which I think he even knows about himself. So Wolverine found an old war buddy, James Hudson, and he left the baby with him for him and his wife to raise. When James Hudson Jr. was finally old enough, his powers revealed themselves, and it turned out he was just like his daddy. From there, it was a little harder to keep the secret about who his daddy actually was, and then we start to get some conflicts between Wolverine and his angsty son. Coming in at number 4, we have Photon, the son of Captain Marvel and one of the most dangerous beings that has ever been brought into the Marvel Universe. Photon has bounced around through a few different phases as a hero. He started off as trying to figure out who he was under the Banner legacy. Then he even took the mantle of Captain Marvel for a bit, but eventually came into his final form of Photon, and it would seem that this form was so powerful it could warp reality itself, and his physical form was so strong that there would never be anything that could destroy him. But it turns out that the Thunderbolts had to find a way to destroy him because Photon couldn't control his powers, and this was going to lead to reality being ripped apart, as it occasionally does in comic books. Basically what happened was Photon was constantly pulling energy into his body without the ability to slow this down. So the Thunderbolts actually had to find a way to dismember him and move his separate body parts into different realities so his body wouldn't bring the end of time and space. It's kind of a bummer for him because he really just wanted to be a good guy. Coming at number 3, we have Kashamba, Black Panther's grandson in one of the most hectic universes that has ever been created in Marvel. For those of you who don't know, Kashamba exists in the Marvel Zombies universe where people are constantly ripping at each other's throats to try and survive. Kashamba had to watch his grandfather, Black Panther, get turned into a zombie to survive. This obviously scares the hell out of the boy, and things get even crazier when the new king takes over Wakanda and then tries to have Black Panther killed. I think it's safe to say that this kid won't grow up well adjusted. Nothing like the mental scarring of your grandfather becoming a zombie and then having an entire nation that you're supposed to inherit try to kill him. Also, later in this comic series, the brain of Steve Rogers gets implanted into Kashamba's body. Things just fly off the handle in this universe. I mean, the people on Earth 616 thought that they had it rough, but there are way crazier things waiting out for you out in the multiverse. Coming Coming in at number 2, we have Hulkling. He is the product of forbidden love, and his origin actually has very little to do with the Hulk, surprisingly. So Teddy Kaplan Altman was living on Earth not thinking that anything strange was going to happen, but one day he's approached by a Super Skrull who starts telling him that he's part of an alien race and he needs to go to space. Whoa, that's a lot for a kid to take in. Later, it's revealed that the lady that he thought was his mom was actually a Skrull, but not his mother. She's a Skrull that was sent to Earth with him to protect him. Then it's revealed that his actual mother is a Skrull princess and his father is a Kree warrior known as the Avenger Captain Marvel. For those of you who don't know, the Kree and the Skrull hate each other, so this is a Romeo and Juliet scenario. Well, the two sides start fighting over who should have custody rights over this mixed alien kid who thought he was a human, and they decide on joint custody. He'll spend half his life with the Kree and the other half with the Skrull, but a Skrull takes his place so he can stay on Earth. This storyline has more plot twists than an episode of Days of Our Lives. Now, outside of this crazy backstory, Hulkling has super strength and the power to shapeshift. He mimics the Hulk's powers and can shift his powers into so many other forms. Coming in at number 1, we have Wiccan. You know, if you're the son of both Scarlet Witch and Vision, you're gonna have some pretty serious powers. But Wiccan didn't even know that he was the baby of two of the greatest heroes of all time. Eventually, he met up with the young Avenger Speed and he realized that the two of them are brothers. Eventually, it's revealed who his real parents are, and they should have known because they all have very similar powers. Wiccan can fly, use magic, alter reality, create force fields, teleport, communicate through the mind, and control things with his mind. And if he's anything like his mama, he might end up being one of the strongest superhumans to ever be on planet Earth. We should probably get this kid into some therapy right now, and everyone should be super nice to him. We don't need another M-Day event happening. You know how everything got screwed up and reality was shifted forever.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Bruce Wayne Jr. Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane. In issue 89, we see the front cover and it's Lois Lane marrying Bruce Wayne. It rhymes, so you know it's a good one. And then to the left we see Superman and he's just thrilled. He's awesome. He's glad to be there. So we have an upset Lois Lane right off the hop. She's pissed at Superman because he keeps going on these secret missions with Wonder Woman. And then on the same page mind you, just a little bit lower, it shows her with Bruce Wayne and she's loving it. She's like, damn, Bruce is attractive. What? She's like on his shoulders, they're wakeboarding in the sunset. It's beautiful. So naturally they have a baby. I mean, come on, Bruce rocking the green Speedo. Obviously. I love this issue. Superman is like, hey dude, no sweat. You actually have my blessing. Go for it. You got it. Then the next panel, he's like, oh, I blew it. Shit. It's so good. The baby, of course, being Bruce Wayne Jr. And before we go on to number 9, guys, if you haven't already, please give this video a thumbs up, because every time you do, somebody here grabs my shoulder and says, good job. And then I smile for hours, so help me smile. Plus it helps us here at the studio too. Awesome, thanks. Okay, over to Huntress. Number 9, the Huntress. Making her first appearance in All-Star Comics issue 69, nice, back in 1977, Helena is a badass lawyer for Cranston, Grayson, and Wayne. But of course, that's not all. Earth 2 is home to the daughter of Batman and Catwoman. When she was only 19 years old, her mother, Selina Kyle, who used to be Catwoman, died in a tragic mishap. And to add insult to injury, literally, the henchman, Silky Cernak, was the reason behind a photo that came out that shows Selina Kyle as Catwoman murdering a police officer. So of course, Helena was pretty pissed and wanted to go make things right. So she took a page out of her parents' book and became the Huntress. She went after Silky Smooth Cernak and got him arrested. And her mother, turns out, didn't even kill anybody. That photo was tampered with. Hashtag photoshopped. She kept the suit and attitude and eventually wound up on the Justice Society of America. See, if you want the truth, guys, you just gotta get a super persona and then throw bad guys in nets. It's that easy. Number 8, Damian Wayne. The son of Batman and Talia al Ghul made his debut back in Batman, Son of the Demon in 1987. And he was perfect. I mean, genetically speaking, he was perfect. He was born from an artificial womb and he was supposed to join the League of Assassins and be a great warrior. That was his life, just laid out. There you go. Which doesn't sound like a bad itinerary. Having a powerful skill set in martial arts before he was even a teenager, Talia al Ghul explained who he was and then left him with his father, Batman. I mean, she was hoping that this would cause problems for Bruce, and then that this would disrupt Batman's work. You know, getting the little one to spy on Batman, stir up some shit with Tim Drake. He was actually quite eager to replace Tim Drake as Batman's wingman, so troubled Damian Wayne grabs another Robin costume, added some cool League of Assassins gear, and then takes out the villain Spook. Does he arrest him? Report his Instagram? No. He actually cuts his head right off his body. So that's certainly one way of serving up justice. Guy's wild. At one point, he even ended up sucker punching Tim Drake off of a T-Rex model, not a real T-Rex. Don't worry. And of course, after Batman R.I.P. and Batman Battle for the Cowl, he becomes the 5th Robin. Number 7, Thomas Taylor Wayne. Wow, what a great middle name. Best name ever, I heard. I don't know. Wild. Thomas Taylor Wayne is the son of Batman and Supergirl, Lara Wayne. In Superman and Batman Generation 3, he was born in the year 2626. And spoiler alert, he dies in 2724. In this generation's imaginary series by John Byrne, we see Thomas Wayne's parents as immortal, which is always a nice time, meaning that Lara is Bruce's great-granddaughter by adoption, and Thomas is both Bruce's son and great-grandson. Huh.
Wow.
Number 6, Ibn al-Zufash. Definitely messed up that name, but we're doing our best here. It translates to Son of the Bat. Making his first appearance in Kingdom Come issue 2, Mark Waid and Alex Ross did such a good job. The artwork is absolutely stunning in this epic series. Ibn is the son of Batman and Talia al Ghul. See, Talia kept Ibn as a secret from the Dark Knight. Then later on in life, he basically had to choose what kind of lifestyle he wanted for himself. You know, either go the way of his grandfather, Ra's al Ghul, or follow the steps of his father, Batman. Now, of course, he chose the Bat and took his own grandfather down. That a boy, nice. One time I told my family my grandpa was smoking inside and then I got grounded. So, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Glad it worked well for him. Awesome. Ibn played a little differently though. I mean, he used his grandfather's resources to do good. He eventually winds up falling in love with Nightstar, daughter of Dick Grayson, and Starfire. Number 5, Damian Wayne. Brave and the Bold edition. There we are. Damian Wayne is the son of Bruce and Catwoman, but this time in the Knights of Tomorrow, where he's voiced by Patrick Kavanagh and Diedrich Bader. So while Bruce was looking at baby Wayne, Bruce realized that his son would one day have to take on crime lords. That's so funny to me. Like, superhero context aside, just looking at a baby and being like, oh yeah, you're gonna punch like 900 people in the throat one day. I can see it. It's amazing. After witnessing the death of his parents, he grabbed one of the 2 Robin outfits on display at the Batman Museum, and Bob's your uncle. You know the rest. Number 4, Bruce Wayne Jr. Coming straight from one of the most wild comic book issues ever, we have Batman and Captain America. That's right. Back in 1977, we see Bruce Wayne Jr., the son of Batman, and, well, we don't really know who the mother is. I'm sure she's great though. I'm sure she's awesome. His uncle, being that of Dick Grayson, was always admired by Bruce Wayne Jr. I mean, of course, look at him. I admire him. I didn't even know this guy. As a child, he would dress up in his uncle's Robin suit and do some at-home workouts. Punch, punch, kick, kick, bam, you know? The good stuff, some Zumba fitness, you know, getting a feel for the suit, which personally, I wouldn't take that suit off if I had access to it. That thing would stink all the time. Gross. So by the time he was 18, he actually worked alongside the new Batman, Dick Grayson. Then after the passing of Batman, Bruce Wayne Jr. swapped outfits and stepped in to take over as Batman. So sick. It's kind of like in Santa Claus when Tim Allen puts on the suit. It's go time. Also, this issue has the smoothest transition when Captain America first shows up. It goes from Batman and Robin jumping out of the way from a bomb, and then cuts to Cap in an explosion with him, like the same kind of fire. Little details like that just capture me. So good. So good. Number 3, Terry McGinnis. All right, imagine you're going for your flu shot and then it turns out it's actually not a flu shot and it's actually Bruce Wayne's DNA. I mean, after I got the flu, I would have some questions, that's for sure. And I can like chop people in the necks. Like, what's going on here? I feel sick, but I'm great at backflips. Project Cadmus director Amanda Waller was out looking for an eventual replacement for Batsy. So she figured she'd get started on Project Batman Beyond. And the key, well, Batman's blood samples left over from his altercations. That mixed in with some nanotech solutions, bam, we have the DNA of Bruce Wayne. So she was out looking for the perfect couple to, you know, force this life onto, and then found that the McGinnis household was perfect. So Warren McGinnis goes for a flu shot, and then he doesn't even know he's soon going to be the father of a biological Bruce Wayne. Surprise, it's a boy. No, for sure, it's a boy, trust me. Number 2, Athanasia Al Ghul. Making her first appearance in the comics on Injustice 2, issue 3, Athanasia, she's referred to as the daughter of the Bat. Talia kept her as a secret from Bruce, because of course, that's how it works in this world always. So many secrets. But she let Damian become a hero and work with Bruce. So, nice. Athanasia was a member of the League of Assassins. She came out of hiding after the fall of Superman's regime and worked with her mother and grandfather, Thomas Wayne. She was caught in El Diablo's explosion and wasn't shielded. presumed dead, until she popped up in Gorilla City after being resurrected from the Lazarus Pit. And finally, number 1, Bruce Wayne Jr. We go over now to the 1965 version of Bruce Wayne Jr. making his debut in World's Finest issue 154. He's the son of Catherine Kane and Bruce Wayne Sr. He's part of the badass duo referred to as the Super Sons, and that name is pretty perfect for the gang. Sided by Superman Jr., the two would grow up together. And the opening of the issue shows them both reading about their fathers and their super achievements. It's really cute. They even get married on the same day. It's wild. Bad boys for life. My favorite part though is seeing the two interact with Superman Jr.'s powers. There's one point where Superman Jr. wouldn't let Batman Jr. down from a teeter-totter. He said, "I won't let you down until you admit my dad has caught more crooks than your dad." The classic "my dad can totally beat your dad up" scenario. The Super Sons eventually figured out their existence was a sham, and they were just a computer simulation all along. But aren't we all in a simulation?
Number 10. Reine Duran. Reine Duran, which sounds kinda like Duran Duran but isn't, is Logan's daughter from an alternate universe. Her mother was a sorceress known as Sylvie d'Arkness, and she grew up in a family with a strong lineage of magic users. She herself has both a healing factor and magical abilities, which allow her to open portals. Her bone claws seem to also be imbued with mystical energy as they glow. Reine made her first full appearance in 2019's Marvel Comics Presents issue number 5. Number 9. Shadow Stalker. Are you ready for the Mongrels? Cause they are coming! Coming for Wolverine's head, that is. The Mongrels were a group of Wolverine's children who all kinda had a personal vendetta against him, many of them being abandoned by him. They were convinced by Daken to become a group known as the Mongrels, who were trained by the Red Right Hand to become assassins and to take on Wolverine. Shadow Stalker was one member of the Mongrels who didn't even get a name. We also don't know who her mother was, but she had a very interesting look when it came to her costume, sporting a weird mask with flail-like hair tendrils, like a flail ponytail. Pony flails. Cannonfoot. Cannonfoot was another mongrel. Once again, we do not know his name or the name of his mother, but Daken also found him and brought him into the fold. His abilities we know to be closer to Wolverine's, giving him an animal-like instinct, superhuman strength, speed, and agility. He also appears to have claws on his toes and fingers, similar to Sabretooth. Sophist. All we think we know is that Sophist is likely Mexican. He is also a member of the Mongrels. Once again, we do not know his mother's name or his name. We know that he wears a luchador mask and enjoys shouting out battle cries in Spanish though. He often fought with a chainsaw strapped to his arm, hence his mantle of Sophist. Gunhawk. Gunhawk became the leader of the Mongrels. He actually got a name, and so did his mother. Yay! His name is William Downing, and his mother was Dolores Downing. She is believed to be a Canadian woman, though the story of her and Logan's relationship still remains pretty unknown. Downing's mother died of old age, so it's likely that she and Logan met a long time ago. And Downing himself is not a young man. He takes the name Gunhawk, inspired by the famous Western gunslinger of the same name. He doesn't appear to have any powers, but he is an expert strategist and skilled combatant. Like the rest of the Mongrels, William died fighting his father. Wolverine gave them the option to surrender, but they refused. Later on, Wolverine would discover that the team was composed solely of his children and buried them, feeling great sorrow and remorse for being made to kill them. Wolverine just has such a tragic story. Everything that happens to him is terrible. Number 5. Jerry Drew. Jerry Drew is theorized to be an alternate future version of Gerald Drew from Earth 8. He ends up joining up with the other alternate heroes of Earth 8, becoming a member of the Amazing 8 superhero team, known himself as Spider-Man. The team includes Spider-Girl, Spider-Boy, SP//DR, or Spider, I think is how we say that, Spider-Ham, another Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, and a Kraven relative also known as Spider-Woman. Lots of Spider-Women. All of these versions of the characters seemingly originating from Earth 8, despite usually being associated with other alternate worlds. Not much is known of Jerry Drew, but he is assumed to be the son of Jessica Drew of Earth 8. He also has some pretty sweet goggles. Number 4. Spider-Boy. Maximilian Morales Stacy is the son of Gwen Stacy and Miles Morales from the alternate reality of Earth 8. Gwen and Miles learned of this alternate reality where they got married and had kids, and were super freaked out by it in the 2015 2015 Spider-Gwen series. Max goes by the superhero mantle Spider-Boy and fights crime along with his sister and parents, which are all obviously part of the Amazing 8 team we just talked about, which operates out of Earth 8. He first became a hero while battling the villain Mojo Harvey, an interdimensional talk show host, alongside his sister. Number 3. Spider-Girl. Charlotte Morales Stacy is the daughter of Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy from the alternate universe of Earth 8. She grows up to become the teen hero known as Spider-Girl. Both Gwen and Miles worked hard as parents to shield their children from the public, as in this reality they are basically celebrities because of their hero status. The Watchers actually determined that Spider-Girl and her brother Spider-Boy were both threats to their timeline due to the fact that they would go on to become interdimensional heroes, often running into alternate versions of their parents. Awkward. Number 2. Gerald Drew. Little baby Gerald is the son of Jessica Drew of Earth 616, the main continuity. Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, decided she wanted to become a mother solo styles. The story she tells her BFF Carol Danvers is that she had a pregnancy scare with a man she'd been casually seeing at the time named Ryan. After discovering, however, that she wasn't pregnant, she realized how disappointed she was. Now, she had never thought that she wanted kids, but she had never really revisited that priority in a long time. And it seemed that now she very much changed her mind and she did want kids. She really wanted a baby. She contemplated this decision for 3 months, then made an appointment to discuss her options. Jessica became a mom solo after that. There was a dad, but he is presumably just a donor, not someone Jessica ever met, or maybe ever wants to meet. Her son Gerald is often babysat by Jessica's friend and later romantic partner Roger, formerly known as Criminal Porcupine, when she needs to go out on superhero business. Gerald has yet to show any signs of being superpowered, however, he's still kinda wee yet, so there's hope that we could see a little spider baby. Number 1. Mystery Baby. This has been something that has always left me wondering in the comics. MJ and Peter have gotten pregnant a few times in the comics, but none has scarred me the most is when Mary Jane was convinced she gave birth to a stillborn baby in Amazing Spider-Man issue 418. This was all revealed to be part of a plot conducted by Norman Osborn, who sought to steal that baby. Why? Well, we never really found out why. A woman in his employ named Allison seemed to spirit the young baby, who we can assume would be named May, away from her parents and off to Europe. But we've never found out what came of that child. During Identity Crisis, there was a hint that May would return, but it would turn out later to be Peter's Aunt May, and not the daughter of Mary Jane and Peter. The whereabouts of this child, if it's still alive, remains unknown. It has been suggested that the baby was killed by Norman in the comics, but then why the plot and investment to have it taken to Europe only to murder that baby? Doesn't really make a lot of sense. I'm still hopeful that one day we'll learn that the child survived and maybe see her return to the comics. Or him, that could be a twist, because I think we're all expecting, you know, a May. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. Who are some of your favorite Spider-Man alternates? Which kids of the Spider Folks are your favorite? Are you hoping baby Jerry grows up to become a hero like his mom, or would you prefer it if he stays out of the superhero community? Maybe he could grow up to become a super villain? I love stories like that.
Number 10. Laura Kinney's Wolverine. The original Wolverine is one of the most popular Marvel Comics characters, having won over the world with his grumpy, fuzzy Canadianness. But here's the thing, because he is so popular and written by so many people, he has a tendency to be kind of inconsistent. At his best, Logan is tough but with a heart of gold, being capable of extreme violence but struggling with the fact that he has the potential to be a feral monster. At his worst, he is written as a psycho who is constantly picking fights with his teammates and continuously talking to no one in particular about how tough he is. His daughter, a half-clone named Laura Kinney, aka X-23, has similar powers, but is less prone to alienating her teammates, being able to get close to people a lot easier than Logan. When Logan died, she took up the Wolverine mantle for a while and managed to be just as skilled and effective, while also showing a lot more emotional maturity than her predecessor. So, while I think Logan is the more interesting character, I think the claim that he's the best there is at what he does is up for debate. Oh, and for what it's worth, when the characters first met and fought, Laura outfought and outsmarted Logan by plugging his wounds with mud so that they couldn't heal over and he would bleed out. Number 9. Connor Kent's Superboy. In 1949, the Superboy series began being published, telling the stories of a young Clark Kent and how he fought crime as Superboy before eventually growing up to be Superman. It detailed his life growing up in Smallville, fighting villains, and teaming up with the time-traveling Legion of Superheroes and Krypto the Superdog. It was a fun, campy series, but other than the character's age, there wasn't really much difference between his Superboy adventures and his Superman ones at the time. A couple continuity shakeups later, we were introduced to a new Superboy, Connor Kent. When Superman was killed by the villain Doomsday, Project Cadmus created a clone of him using a combination of Superman and Lex Luthor's DNA. Connor had slightly different powers and a teenage snark that really set him apart from the Man of Steel. And watching him navigate his complicated lineage, his desire for acceptance from Supes, his time on the Teen Titans, and his growth as a character made him a lot more interesting to read about than a young Clark Kent. I also really like the period where Superman's son John Kent becomes Superboy, but it was unfortunately cut very short when he was aged up. Number 8. Terry McGinnis's Batman. In the Batman Beyond television show, we were shown a futuristic Gotham City where Bruce Wayne had been forced to retire due to his advanced age. A teenager named Terry McGinnis stumbled upon the Batcave and used Bruce's futuristic batsuit to avenge the death of his father, impressing Bruce so much that he was offered the mantle of Batman. Terry's Batman has a lot of advantages over the original Batman, being able to turn invisible and fly with rocket boots and having enhanced strength, just to name a few. Now, this comes with a huge asterisk, as the suit was designed and built by Wayne, and Terry doesn't have the same level of skill as the original Batman, which is why he's ranked relatively low on this list. But the point that I'm trying to make is that Terry's Batman has better tech in every conceivable way than every version of Bruce Wayne at his peak. Also, credit to Terry, he was able to get under the Joker's skin in a way that Bruce never would have thought to in the Return of the Joker film. Number 7. Scott Lang's Ant-Man. People have a tendency to complain about the fact that the Ant-Man movies chose to focus on Scott Lang's time as Ant-Man rather than Hank Pym's, which I don't really get if I'm being honest. Don't get me wrong, Pym is a great character and is responsible for the creation of the tech that allows Ant-Man to shrink and grow and control ants. All that fun stuff. He first suited up as Ant-Man in 1962's Tales to Astonish number 35, but he gave up the persona and became Giant Man barely a year later in Tales to Astonish number 49. He's bounced between identities a lot, having mostly alternated between Giant Man and Yellow Jacket, but to my knowledge he never became Ant-Man again. On the other hand, Scott Lang has been suiting up as Ant-Man since 1979, and in his time in the costume has fought and defeated villains like Kang the Conqueror and Doctor Doom. He has way more quality stories than Pym does just by virtue of having stuck with the identity longer. You could absolutely debate whether or not Hank Pym is a better superhero than Scott, but if you're talking about who the better Ant-Man is, it's hard not to pick Scott. Number 6. Kyle Rayner's Green Lantern. The original Green Lantern was Alan Scott, but the most well-known is Hal Jordan. There are other Earth Green Lanterns such as Guy Gardner and John Stewart, who are both great characters who you could make the argument are better or more interesting than Hal, depending on your personal taste. But for this list, I gotta give it to Kyle Rayner. When Hal lost it and became the villain Parallax, he destroyed the entire Green Lantern Corps, and Kyle got the last ring, making him the only Green Lantern left. Kyle proved up to the task and managed to become a capable superhero and member of the Justice League. When he had to go up against Parallax, he managed to defeat Hal and save the planet. Later, when the planet was in danger again, he was the one who convinced Hal to redeem himself. Later, when the Corps was reformed, he was granted the title of Torchbearer for his efforts. He was a host for the Ion entity of Will, and was chosen by every ring on the emotional spectrum to be a member of their various corps, wielding all the rings at once. This led to him becoming the White Lantern, so while he isn't a lot of people's favorite Lantern, he has done more for the Corps than any of them.
Number 5. Benji Parker. Benji is one of Peter's children with Mary Jane from the reality of Earth 19529. He first appeared in Spider-Man Life Story issue number 3 and was created by Chip Zdarsky and Mark Bagley. In this reality, Mary Jane gave birth to twins and left Peter shortly after they were born. Not being able to deal with the fact that Peter led two lives, one as Peter Parker and one one is the hero Spider-Man. Benji was likely mostly estranged from his father for a good amount of his childhood, as Mary Jane took her children with her when she left Peter, and raised them near Portland, Oregon. But Benji would reconnect with his dad when he was 11. Number 4. Claire Parker. Claire is the twin sister to Benji. She also first appeared in Spider-Man Life Story issue number 3. Later on in their lives, her family would be tormented by the villain known as Morlun, who killed their Uncle Ben shortly after Claire had returned home after finishing college. Peter hoped to lure Morlun away from his family by returning to New York, but instead Morlun chose this opportunity to strike on Peter's kids. He attempted to devour Claire's life energy, but she managed to fend him off by attacking him while he fed. Benji came up with a theory that Morlun was actually more vulnerable to being attacked while feeding, and came up with a plan to use himself as bait so that Claire could defeat him. This plan actually worked, but it also left Benji permanently injured, causing him to have to walk with a cane for the rest of his life. Number 3. Spiderling. Anna May Annie Parker is from the Earth of 18119. She made her first appearance in 2015's Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows issue number 1. Her Earth was revealed to be one of the alternates condensed and weirdly preserved in God Emperor Doom's battle world following the incursions. Their reality was transformed into the domain known as the Regency. In this alternate reality, Annie was the daughter of Mary Jane and Peter and developed spider-like abilities similar to her father's. Her spider sense also grants her a kind of future vision, and as such is considered more involved and more powerful than Peter's. Number 2. Little Benjamin Benji Parker. This Ben Parker, fondly referred to by his sister as Benji, first appeared in 1998's Spider-Girl in issue 59. You know what that means. He is the little brother of Mayday Parker. Benji showed signs of powers very early on. He bonded with the Carnage symbiote when he was just a little toddler, and May had to use sonic waves to separate the symbiote from him. Because he was so small, his eardrums actually burst, giving him hearing loss and making him deaf, which May felt awful about and super responsible for. Even without his hearing though, Benji was still a perfectly happy little boy. He would later recover his hearing, but after bonding with the symbiote, it was believed that the experience may have altered Benji's physiology somehow. His powers began to surface shortly afterward, leaving him crawling on ceilings and walls and manifesting and using his own super strong organic webbing. It's believed Benji could even grow up become a more powerful hero than both his sister and his father. Number 1. Mayday Parker. May Parker, aka Spider-Girl, aka Spider-Woman, is one of the most famous of Spider-Man's kids. She is from the alternate reality of Earth 982 and first appeared in the 1989 What If series in issue 105. The story she was featured in sought to answer the question, what if Mary Jane had never lost the baby and Spider-Man had a Spider-Girl? People loved Mayday so much that she would later get her own series, Spider-Girl, which would have a 100-issue run. Pretty impressive. Like her little brother, she is of course the daughter of Mary Jane and Peter. She shares her father's abilities, but she isn't quite as physically strong as he is. However, she does have enhanced agility and spider sense, which more than makes up for that slight difference in strength. Number 10. Ironheart. Ironheart is Riri Williams. In part 1 we talked about how Dr. Doom weirdly carried on the legacy of Tony Stark's Iron Man, but at the same time, so was Riri. She might not be Doom, but Riri is insanely smart, especially for just being a teenager, and there have been glimpses into futures where we see her permanently carry on Iron Man's legacy. Ironheart also comes with her own set of armor, like others who have taken up the legacy of Iron Man. And like Tony, she can build and repair her own set of armor as well. As Ironheart, Riri Williams was also guided by Tony Stark himself. At first she was guided by his real-life physical self, and after he was knocked into a coma by Captain Marvel near the end of Civil War II, an AI version of him became her guide. Number 9. Miss Marvel. For this point, we are focusing on Kamala Khan's Miss Marvel, who carries on the legacy of Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel. Well, in her Disney Plus streaming series, it is implied that Kamala is part of a different group of heroes. In the comics, she's actually known for her ties to the Inhumans, possessing Inhuman ancestry, which is also how she gets her powers. They first manifested when the Terrigen Mists were released onto Earth, causing her potential to be unlocked and granting her stretching and sort of shape-shifting abilities, which Kamala often uses in combat to defeat her enemies. Kamala's connection to Carol is simply that she is a huge Captain Marvel fangirl, and as a result, when Carol took up the mantle of Captain Marvel, Kamala was permitted to use her former superhero name of Miss Marvel. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you are loving our channel, please head on over to Facebook where you can also follow us. And we also have some fresh content up there right now. We did a Q&A in our community posts here on Top 10 Nerd on YouTube, and we actually did our responses over on Facebook, so go check that out. It's a really really fun video actually, it's really funny. Number 8. Donna Troy, aka Wonder Girl. Donna Troy's backstory and her connection to Wonder Woman changes depending on the continuity in the narrative. Although I guess right now, all of them would be true given that all the continuities were kinda like reconciled into one during Dark Knight's death metal. Donna has been both an enemy turned friend to Wonder Woman and simply just a friend. She has been like a little sister to her as well at times. She was either or both made from clay or using a mirror, where she was created as a duplicate to Wonder Woman. She is often depicted as sharing many of Diana's traits, powers, and abilities, putting her on a similar power level to Wonder Woman. Number 7. Iron Fist. Lin Lee is the new Iron Fist, having inherited the powers from Shou-Lu when he was washed ashore and lay dying. Initially, this new Iron Fist would appear to readers to be, although many fans did suspect that Lin Lee may indeed be the new Iron Fist. Previously, Lin was known by the name of Swordmaster. He carries on the legacy of many heroes who have come before him, including that of Danny Rand, who for years was known as the Iron Fist at Marvel Comics. Lin even at one point teams up with Danny. Not only does Lin possess the powers of the Iron Fist, but he also comes with other mystical powers, being the last descendant of Zhan Fuli and therefore being granted the power to wield the sword of Fu Zi. Lin is also exceptionally skilled in the martial arts and sword fighting as well as puzzle solving. Number 6. Kid Flash. Wallace West was basically set up to be the new Wally West in the New 52 continuity, but people weren't keen on losing Wally entirely to gain Wallace, so instead, Wally was returned to continuity and Wallace R. West was made the younger cousin of Wally West instead of like being his replacement in the continuity. Like his older cousin, Wallace is also a speedster and shares a connection to the Speed Force. He is known by the superhero or sidekick name of Kid Flash, carrying on the Flash legacy. He has one of my favorite superpowers of all time, super speed. He can not only use these abilities to travel really fast through space, but also to travel through dimensions and through time. Wallace can also do things like heal using the Speed Force. Number 5. Emiko. Emiko is the adopted daughter of Wolverine. She first appeared in Uncanny X-Men issue 181 where her mother was killed when a dragon from Battleworld rampaged through Tokyo. True story. Wolverine agreed to look after Emiko as her mother lay dying, worried for her daughter's safety. Wolverine promised to raise her as his own, and well, that's kinda what he did. Well, it was mostly his fiancée Mariko who raised her, as Wolverine of course was often busy with X-Men missions. After Mariko was assassinated by the Hand, Emiko ended up in the foster system. When Logan learned Emiko's foster parents were not taking proper care of her, he removed her from their care and asked his friend Yukio to look after her. Seeing as how Emiko has spent most of her life raised with Clan Yoshida, although she does not have any powers just yet, she is trained in the martial arts. She's even teamed up with Wolverine and Yukio at the end of issue 303 of Wolverine. It's pretty cute. Number 4. Scout. Scout was formerly known as Honey Badger and is a clone of Wolverine. She was also created using Wolverine's genetic material and that of geneticist Sarah Kinney. She is one of 10 clones created in this vein who are often referred to as the Sisters. Gabrielle Kinney, or Gabby, was created by Alchemex Genetics and was trained and used as a bodyguard to be sent out on missions. Her and her sisters were made to feel no pain, which sometimes gives her a strange edge in comparison to some of Wolverine's other children, if we're talking about power levels. Although, you know, pain is there to be felt for a reason, so. Number 3. Jimmy Hudson. Jimmy is the son of Wolverine from the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610. He was adopted by James Hudson, who promised to take care of Wolverine's newborn son after the two fought together in Iraq and Wolverine died. Jimmy's last name was changed and he was raised without ever knowing about his father, or that he was likely a mutant. When he was a teenager, his power manifested, and it was only then that he learned of his true origins. Number 2. Daken. Daken's original name was Akihiro. He is a mutant natural-born son of Wolverine and his wife Itsu. Itsu herself was very pregnant with Logan's child when she was murdered by Bucky Barnes during his time as the assassin known as Winter Soldier. It was later revealed that Itsu's unborn child did not perish, but was instead cut out of Itsu's womb and retrieved by the villain Romulus. Romulus later left the baby on the doorstep of a wealthy Japanese family, who took the baby in and raised him as their own. The family named him Akihiro, but the servants referred to him as Dakan, meaning mongrel, because of his mixed racial appearance. Romulus would later reveal himself to the boy after everything kinda went sideways, claiming to be him from the future and attempting to use and manipulate Dakan for his own purposes. Dakan and his father, considering his backstory as such, have had a rocky relationship throughout the comics, and Dakan is often painted as a villain or a reluctant anti-hero. Number 1. X-23, also known really as just Wolverine. She and her dad are both Wolverine, really. Laura Kinney is technically the genetic twin of Wolverine. She was created when Facility tried to create a clone of Weapon X to use, well, as a weapon. Sarah Kinney, an acclaimed geneticist, was brought in when Xander Rice failed to replicate the adamantium bonding procedure on any of his subjects, who all died during the process. The genetic sample that Sarah was attempting to use to clone Wolverine with was damaged, which prompted her to suggest making a female clone instead of reconstructing the genetic sample artificially, which would take years. When Dr. Sutter and Xander Rice refused to agree with Kinney that this was the best way to proceed, she rebelled and decided to go against their wishes, moving forward with her version of the project. In the end, she was forced into being the surrogate mother for baby Laura and regretted her earlier views of seeing this being as only a weapon instead of the true miracle of life that it was. Laura would grow up to be X-23 and would eventually escape the facility and track down her genetic father, Wolverine. Number 10. Powerhouse. Powerhouse is the son of Reed Richards and Sue Storm Richards. He is known more commonly by his civilian name, Franklin Richards. Both he and his sister Valeria are gifted youngsters, each in their own way, but apparently not mutants. Franklin initially had powers that allowed him to warp reality and eventually was revealed to be a mutant. However, this sadly has not stayed the status quo. Lately, Franklin has struggled with his powers, with them going on the fritz and then even disappearing completely. Along with that, it was revealed that it was thanks to Franklin subconsciously warping reality to appear as a mutant that he was considered as one, and thus without his powers was revealed to be not truly a mutant at all. That is why I'm ranking Franklin so low on this list this time around. However, I am confident that in the future, Franklin will both recover his powers and likely be reinstated with his mutant status. So hopefully this change to his character is only temporary and not permanent. However, only time will tell. Number 9. Nightwing. Nightwing is a legacy hero for Batman. Although he doesn't share the same codename currently, Dick Grayson has taken up the cape and cowl of his adoptive father Bruce Wayne's Batman before. When Batman was believed dead, it was Grayson who attempted to fill his father's shoes and for a time did become Batman. While some prefer the idea of Bruce's natural / really test tube son, Damian Wayne, taking up the mantle, others believe Dick, who is Batman's first Robin and is later even adopted by Bruce, is more suited to carry on the Batman legacy. While still only being a super skilled man, Nightwing is one of the most well-rounded Robins to have existed in the comics, which might also be why folks are so interested in seeing Nightwing take up the Batman mantle more permanently, following Bruce's future retirement or actual death. However, you know how it goes. People usually die and then they come back. That's just how it goes. Except now in DC, apparently we're gonna get a reality where there are legacy heroes and they just keep time passes, people die, things change. It's gonna be crazy. And friends, before I move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, be sure that you show us that you're loving it by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Miss Martian. Miss Martian carries on the legacy of her uncle John Johns. She is technically a white Martian who disguises herself as a green Martian because white Martians, well, they got a pretty bad rap. Although Martians usually don't come up as much when we talk about heroes who are most powerful, likely because of their weakness to fire, which is really only psychological, they actually have a ton of impressive powers, both in the physical and psionic spheres. Magon herself can shapeshift, cast illusions, control, read, and manipulate minds, and has super strength and durability as well as flight. She can also appear invisible too, because, you know, shapeshifting and such. Number 7. Captain Marvel. Although Carol Danvers is not related to Captain Marvel, she still is technically a legacy hero. She carries on his legacy both as the hero Miss Marvel and later as Captain Marvel, taking up his mantle after his death to honor his legacy. Carol is a cosmic powerhouse who gets her name and powers from the Kree hero Mar-Vell. Her powers first manifested initially when he saved her from the exploding Psyche Magnetron, and it was because Carol wished to be like Mar-Vell that she was initially believed to have manifested her powers, which is also because of the Psyche Magnetron and the explosion. If you read the comic, it makes sense. Later on, we'd also learn that she actually shared Mar-Vell's Kree heritage, with her mother being a Kree who lived on Earth disguised as a human. Number 6. Superman. Jon Kent is the son of Superman and Lois Lane. He carries on the Superman legacy and even takes up the mantle for himself, becoming known simply as Superman. Initially, he and Damian Wayne grew up together at the beginning of the New 52. They weren't fast friends, but would eventually become really good friends. Best friends, if you will. Actually, Superman's Jon Kent appears to be good friends with many of the Bat family kids, including the adopted son of Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson, aka Nightwing. Being half Kryptonian, Jon is immensely powerful due to the yellow sun of Earth. He can fly, has super strength, speed, and invulnerability, among other powers.
Number 5. Starman. The original Starman was Ted Knight, a wealthy scientist who created a device called the Gravity Rod, which allowed him to fly and shoot energy blasts and stuff like that. Personally, if my ability to fly depended on being able to hold a flashlight in my hand, I'd put a strap on it, kinda like a Wii controller, but maybe that's just me. Anyway, he was a hero in the Golden Age, first appearing in 1941 and being a member of the Justice Society. He had 2 sons, David and Jack, but he could be somewhat neglectful of them because of his focus on superheroics. When he retired, he passed the mantle down to his older son David, which was fine with Jack because he thought the whole thing was dumb. David was Starman for about a week before the son of the original Starman's archenemy, the Mist, shot him with a sniper rifle. At this point, Jack reluctantly took on the mantle. He redesigned the suit to be more casual and modern, and his father gave him a gravity staff to replace the rod. The story of someone reluctantly becoming a hero while trying to reconcile with an absent father is more interesting to me than anything Ted Knight got up to in the Golden Age. So I'm calling Jack the superior Starman, and if nothing else he did better than David. Number 4. Night Owl 2. Despite being introduced in the same comics at the same time, a couple of the characters in Alan Moore's Watchmen universe are legacy characters, such as the heroes going by Night Owl. The original Night Owl was a man named Hollis Mason who was a policeman in New York in the late 30s. He decided to become a vigilante and eventually joined the masked adventurer group the Minutemen. He was a good hand-to-hand fighter, but beyond that wasn't the most impressive hero. After he retired, a man named Dan Dryberg, who had inherited a large amount of money, wrote to him and asked for permission to take up the mantle. Dan was a genius inventor, having a variety of gadgets like night vision goggles, a more advanced suit, and his owl ship, Archie. He trained with Hollis to be just as good of a martial artist, and the two became good friends until Hollis's death. Considering how much more advanced Night Owl 2 is in every sense of the word, it's hard not to consider him the superior crime fighter. Number 3. Amadeus Cho's Hulk. Amadeus Cho is a brilliant scientist not dissimilar to Bruce Banner, who is considered the 6th smartest man alive in the Marvel Universe. He worked alongside several heroes in the decade before he became Hulk, but Banner was the first he helped. That made it very fitting when he was forced to use special nanites to absorb the Hulk's powers. This turned him into a new Hulk. But unlike Banner, who suffers from severe DID, and as a result has several different and very dangerous angry Hulks inside of him, Cho was able to keep his Hulk side relatively under control, priding himself at being a better and smarter Hulk than Banner. Now, if I was an Avenger, I would feel a lot better with Cho on my team than the unpredictable Banner. So I really do think that Cho's Hulk is the better hero, due to him rarely losing control. But setting aside the logic of who would realistically be the better hero, who wants to read a Hulk comic where he doesn't lose control? Banner is by far the more interesting of the two characters, even if Cho is a better fit for teams like the Avengers. Number 2. Tim Drake's Robin. Several people have taken on the mantle of Robin the Boy Wonder over the years, with the original being Dick Grayson. Dick operated as Robin for decades in the comics before he was finally allowed to grow up. In story, he and Batman grew apart and were having a lot of personality conflicts, so Robin quit and eventually became Nightwing. He was replaced by Jason Todd, who was a street kid Batman caught stealing the tires off the Batmobile. Jason became Robin but was never as skilled as Dick, and had a tendency to be overly aggressive and to clash with the Dark Knight, frequently disobeying orders and eventually being killed by the Joker. After this, a kid named Tim Drake realized that Batman in his grief was becoming more and more violent and reckless, and decided that Batman needed a Robin to help temper his aggression. Tim became Robin and took to the role flawlessly. Now that Tim has been replaced by Damian Wayne and has become his own hero, you could make the argument that he is not as skilled a solo hero as Dick's Nightwing or Jason's Red Hood, But as far as which of the Robins has worked the best with Batman, Tim stands above the rest, with even the original Dick Grayson having admitted that Tim was the best of the Robins. Plus, his Robin costume was a massive improvement on the classic no pants and pixie boots look both Dick and Jason had worn during their times as Robin. Number 1. Zatanna. As she is such a staple of the DC universe, albeit an extremely underrated staple, a lot of fans might not even realize that Zatanna the Magician is a legacy character. Her father, Giovanni Zatara, made his first appearance in Action Comics number 1, the same issue that featured the first appearance of Superman. Like his daughter, he performs as a stage magician, but is an actual magic wielder who is able to cast spells by speaking his incantations backwards. He uses these abilities to fight crime and do the whole superhero thing. Zatanna took a similar path as her father, but was more popular with readers. Due to her father having been dead in the comics for several years and therefore rarely showing up, and her being much easier on the eyes, not many people seek out her father's adventures, instead choosing to focus on his progeny, one of the most popular legacy characters in comics.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Ultimate Red Skull. Making his debut in the Ultimate Comics Avengers 1 back in 2009, Ultimate Red Skull is a lot different than the Red Skull casual moviegoers would have guessed at this point. See, the son of Steve Rogers, yes, and Gail Richards. They even hid him and trained him to become the next Captain America. It's wild. The Ultimates are wild. He always feared that he would never live up to his father's expectations. I mean, fair. At just age 17, he killed all the doctors and soldiers at the military base. He was in charge, and his side hustle was planning this badass escape in the meantime. He then got the haunting look by using a kitchen knife and carving his head. So that's disgusting. Nice gross way to kick off this list. And before we continue on to number 9, guys, if you could go ahead and Hulk smash that like button because it really helps us out here at the studio. You guys are the best. Now back to the list. Coming in at number 9, we have Lyra. Taking place on Earth 8009, beginning with Hulk Raging Thunder issue 1. We find Lyra Walters, or sometimes referred to as Savage She-Hulk. She is the daughter of Thundra and Earth 616 Hulk. So yeah, she's from Earth 8009 in the 23rd century, and at that time the Earth was split into different factions, right? So the guys faction were like warriors, they looked up to like past heroes. Then the women came together under the United Sisterhood Republic, and they were outgunned and outmanned, like literally outmanned. So Thundra got sent to Earth, our Earth 616, where she met our Hulk, and had a baby. How cute. Lyra actually gets stronger when she's calm, and she's able to tap into the gamma sight, which means she can see the flow of gamma radiation. I'm doing my best interpretation of gamma radiation. Can't see the green, but it's a lot of gamma behind me. So she becomes a smarter and smoother fighter in this state. But if she becomes angry, she'll actually become weaker, which is fun. Let's play with that idea a bit. Number 8, Ultron. In the MCU, Tony and Bruce are the masterminds behind Ultron. But in the comics, it was actually Hank Pym. See, Ultron made his first debut back in 1968 in Avengers 54. And beneath the crimson cowl, we discover is indeed Ultron Pym. I love how in Age of Ultron they used a red cowl to hide his new and improved look. It was a nice reveal. In the comics, Hank Pym was actually the father of Ultron, so there's been many versions of Ultron, seeing as he constantly wants to upgrade himself and be bigger, badder, and bolder. He actually has the same brain patterns as Hank Pym. He figured it needed a personality, much like our MCU version of Ultron is basically Tony Stank, but with more, you know, metal, rage, fire, and blood and horribleness. Number 7, Franklin Richards. Born in New York City, Franklin Richards, of course being the son of Reed Richards and Susan Storm, is quoted from Galactus himself as the most powerful mutant ever. Nice, that's it. Put that on a resume. Boop, that's sick. He is a mutant beyond Omega power. You heard it from Big Guns himself. See, Franklin was a member of Gen X, and he's also a future X-Men member in the Ultimate X-Men comics. Some of his powers include vast reality warping, psionic powers. He also has control over the universe, so awesome. He's got precognitive powers, so his dreams tip him off on what's gonna happen in real life. That happens to me, except it's always embarrassing, and they end up happening. He can see the future in his dreams. That's so OP. He can resurrect the dead, he can time travel, teleport, astral project, and he can duplicate planets and or people. So yeah, Ego, living planet. You're doomed either way, pal. At a young age, he was able to create a pocket universe, and then in Fantastic Four issue 604, this dude even took on not one, not two, but 3 Celestials. One of them he actually just took out with one punch. One punch, man. One punch, man. Huh. Needless to say, Franklin Richards is not somebody you want to mess with in any of his pocket universes. Franklin has a middle name, and that's Benjamin, which is nice because they named him after their good pal, Ben Grimm, the Thing. My middle name's Douglas. Number 6, Red She-Hulk. So this mysterious character just showed up when the Red Hulk gathered a team to hunt down Domino. So while Wolverine was fighting Red Hulk, he like scratched his eyes out, which is a mess. And then just as Wolverine was about to finish him off, bam, Red She-Hulk comes in to save the day, and she's fierce. Like right off the bat, she taunts Wolverine by showing him her fancy new outfit that used to belong to Domino. Like she had Domino's gun, she had Elektra's sai, and then she bragged about how she killed the two and took their weapons and clothes. So she's kind of a hot mess. She held off the fight long enough for Red Hulk to recuperate, and then unbeknownst to Red Hulk until later on, the identity of the new mysterious Red Badass is actually none other than Betty Ross. General Ross became the Red Hulk and was an Avenger at one point. So his daughter, Betty, naturally also became the Red She-Hulk. Now, I know what I said about her earlier makes her sound like an absolute savage. In some of these comics, yeah, she is. She even killed the Hulk in Incredible Hulk 634, so you gotta check more of her out. Her powers are pretty nuts. During the scrap with Wolverine, she spat in his face, which is yucky. First of all, we don't do that anymore, 6 feet apart, people. But secondly, her saliva is acid. So she grabbed Red Hulk and they both ducked out in the sewers while his eyes melted. Yuck. Number 5, Stinger, AKA Cassie Lang. This one I think we actually might see in the MCU sooner than we think. So, yes. The daughter of Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man, is one of my favorite parts of the Ant-Man films. She's so cute, she's funny, the way they interact, it's just good. It's a nice father-daughter relationship that we kind of saw with Morgan and Tony, but it was just nicer, and this lasted much longer. So in the comics, she actually took over for her father after his death and Avengers disassembled. Now, I don't think Paul Rudd's gonna leave the MCU anytime soon, but if/when he does, I think they've shown enough growth of Cassie Lang, literally, that they can have her suit up now. I mean, who knows, maybe after he supposedly blipped, Cassie wanted to like avenge him and stuff. We didn't really see a lot of that side. Even in the comics, she was asked by Scarlet Witch to join the Young Avengers. Then she donned the name Stinger after she died and came back to life. Now, while I don't think this exactly is gonna happen anytime soon in the movies, I'm getting an idea that she works alongside Scott Lang in the next movie. That's my prediction. See, Scott watched Hank and Hope play catch up during this franchise. She practically begged him to get her own suit, but Hank's like, no, or Michael Douglas said no like 1,000 times, he yelled a lot too. Scott probably saw this and knew it was gonna happen eventually with him and Cassie, right? So we had that little time jump in Endgame, now we've got an older Cassie in a world that's pretty dangerous. Maybe we'll see it, maybe we won't. Maybe it's Maybelline. And number 4, Valeria Richards. The second child, as you would have guessed, by Reed Richards and Susan Storm. She made her debut in Fantastic Four Volume 3, Issue 54. Valeria is also so badass like her brother. She may not be as powerful as her brother, with the whole Omega level pocket universe jazz, but she's super smart, smarter than her dad even. Pretty sick. She's also more into working alongside her uncle, Victor Von Doom. There's always the cool uncle everybody loves, Can't help it, just too cool. Hashtag too cool for school. She believes that Reed also never really used his knowledge to help people. Rather, he just did things for himself, which is a common theme in superhero worlds. Donning the nickname Brainstorm in the meantime, hopefully we get to see her sometime soon. Number 3, Scotty Summers. Making his debut in Mutant X issue 1 back in 1998, Scotty Summers is the son of Avengers member Havoc and Madeline Pryor. The Inferno event is probably the most noted piece of his history. See, they wanted to use Scotty Summers as a sacrifice in order to open up a portal to the Goblin Force. Madeline saved him, but in doing so, she became possessed by the Goblin Queen. This was when he showed his true power. That power just happens to be up there with Franklin Richards. Celestial level, baby. He's the best. He has soul sense empathy, so he has the ability to sense the goodness in others without even touching them. And on top of that, he can read minds, so it doesn't matter how you feel or think. Scotty already knows. And Psionic Firebird is pretty wild too. He can turn into a psychic firebird whose claws can harm you physically and or mentally. Nice. Number 2, Vision, the son of Iron Man and Banner. In Captain America Civil War, we see the fallout of Tony and Cap begin. See, after creating an evil robot son who wants nothing but destruction, Tony figures, well, maybe if I make another one, the new body and Mind Stone will kind of be good. And it did. It was pretty sweet, and he kicks ass. Vision started out as his android that belonged to Tony Stark. And then by time Infinity War, Banner says the line, "You lost another Superbot?" And then Tony responds with, "I didn't lose him, he's evolving." So this is an interesting time in the MCU. Vision is like the son of Iron Man, and then after we lost him, I knew there would be more. Even in this poster, there's a glitch, a little speck of color left in it. In Infinity Gauntlet, we see a colorless Vision after he meets a similar demise. So when that poster was released, I figured there was a part of him that was downloaded and left somewhere because Marvel doesn't just make printing errors. I don't know why we didn't look into this more. So with WandaVision releasing on Disney Plus next year, this could become reality. Who knows where the baby Avenger will end up, but I'm excited and also very nervous. Please be okay. And finally at number 1, we got Scar. Making his debut in World War Hulk issue 5, he was conceived during the Planet Hulk storyline. He's a son of Hulk and Kyra the Old Strong. After Hulk had spent time on Sakaar, he also started spending a little bit of alone time, you know? So after Hulk had left the planet, Sakaar had popped out of a cocoon and he resembled a teenager after just a year. So growing pretty fast. Now given the fact he was born to a not so chill planet, he learned to kill like it was a normal thing. Well, he needed to kill for survival. Eventually, he ends up on Axman Bone's radar. So Scar retains the old power as well. So he has the ability to control tectonic energy, like summon lava and magma, and he can also tap into energy projection. Out of the many children of the Hulk, Scar easily takes the top of that list. And also the top of this list as well, because he's here, so there it is.
Number 10, Hunter Prince. Hunter is the son of Wonder Woman from an alternate timeline. He first appeared in the 2016 Justice League story arc called Legacy. It's a 6-part story starting in issue 26 that allows us to meet the children of some of the original team from an alternate timeline. Hunter himself appears to be armed with his mother's lasso of truth, her bracelets of submission, and her razor-sharp tiara. Hunter was adopted and raised by the Kents, growing up alongside Superman and Lois' son, John Kent. Number 9, Aqua Baby. Arthur Curry Jr. is also known as Aqua Baby and is the main continuity child of both Queen Mera and King Aquaman. Or he was anyways. He went on a few adventures with his parents but was tragically kidnapped by Black Manta and suffocated to death before either of his parents could save him. Due to the fact that he was Atlantean, Aqua Baby was unable to breathe out of water for a prolonged period of time. The death of baby Arthur is what drove a wedge between his parents, eventually causing them to separate. Though Arthur and Mera seem to be once again getting hitched, so perhaps we will also see a return of Aqua Baby, or more likely some other version of the character reintroduced to us. And before we move on to our number 8 spot, I just wanted to say thank you for watching, and if you want to help us out at the channel, you can do so by giving this video a thumbs up. It really does help. Number 8, Hyperman. Hyperman is the son of Superman and Wonder Woman from the alternate reality of Kingdom Come. He is also raised in part by Batman, who is basically like his godfather until he was kidnapped and spirited away. After the heroes rescued him, the child seemingly disappeared, but we would later learn this is because he was actually raised by an older version of himself who resides within Hypertime. Young Jonathan Kent, as fate would have it, was destined to become the guardian of Hypertime, which pretty much means he was considered powerful and important enough to be the guardian of the pathways of the multiverse. Or the pathways to the multiverse, you know, lots of spacey stuff, lots of spacey Grant Morrison stuff. Number 7, Serenity. Serenity is the daughter of Aquaman and Mera in the alternate timeline that is explored in Justice League's Legacy story arc. We learn that although she was close to and loved her mother, she has a much strained relationship with her father, who also appears as a villain opposing the Legacy team of heroes. Eldoris Curry's outfit seems to be inspired by both her father and mother and her Atlantean heritage. She also has been shown to possess super strength, teleportation, and water manipulation powers. Number 6. Connor Hawke. Green Arrow has had quite a few kids, even just in the main continuity. One of the most famous, however, is Connor Hawke, his natural-born son by his girlfriend Sandra Moonday Hawke. Connor would grow up to become the second Green Arrow following the apparent death of his father. His mother raised him by herself, teaching him about who his father was and telling him that she did love his father dearly. Connor first met his father when he was studying at the Ashram Monastery, the same monastery he knew his father had retreated to years ago. Oliver once more was doing just that and visited the monastery again after Black Canary had broken up with him. The adventure these two ended up going on didn't end so well though, as Green Arrow was made aware of Connor's true identity and connection to him before Connor had found the right time to confess that he was his son. Yikes. Shortly thereafter, Green Arrow died and Connor took up his father's mantle, becoming friends with the new Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner, just like his dad was friends with Hal Jordan. It's so cute. Number 5. Warhawk. Warhawk is the future son of Green Lantern John Stewart and Hawkgirl from the DCAU, DC Animated Universe. He first appeared in the animated series Batman Beyond and was created by Paul Dini and Alan Burnett. Warhawk's real name is Rex Stewart, and he was named after one of John's friends from the military, Rex Mason, who would later become the Element Man, Metamorpho, in the DCAU. In an alternate timeline, Warhawk is shown to have teamed up with Static and future Batman Terry McGinnis, as well as old Bruce Wayne. Number 4. Cruz. The crazy thing about Nora Allen is that she isn't even the only child to come from these two League members. Nora Allen is part of the Justice League Legacy team, which Hunter Prince is also a part of from an alternate timeline, which Hunter Prince and Serenity of course are also part of from an alternate timeline. She is the daughter of Green Lantern Jessica Cruz and Barry Allen, aka The Flash. It's kind of a strange pairing, but definitely an interesting one, and one that's sort of been foreshadowed before, but I always just think of Iris, so that's just me. Nora and Hunter also appear to be in a romantic relationship in the Legacy story in which they both appear. Nora can tap into the Speed Force but does not seem to possess a Green Lantern ring like her mother. Number 3. Fury. Originally, Hippolyta Trevor was known to be the daughter of Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor, born from their marriage and first appearing in Wonder Woman issue 300. Weirdly enough, one of the first interactions we see with her and her mother is her training with a giant metal ball and asking for advice from another version of Wonder Woman who is also joining Diana and Steve for dinner and is currently the main continuity Wonder Woman. The Wonder Woman that is Lita's mother is from Earth 2, the original Wonder Woman in terms of comic continuity. I also love older Wonder Woman in this with her like gray streak in her hair. It's so cool. Steve Trevor looks creepy though. He's got a creepy face. He's like, I'm 60 now. Why do you look so creepy, Steve Trevor? Why? Number 2. Damian Wayne. Damian Wayne is the very stubborn son of Batman and sometimes ally, but mostly villain, Talia al Ghul. Damian spent his formative years growing up with his mother, and as such was a trained and egotistical killer and jerk when he was dropped on Bruce's doorstep. However, over time he has learned restraint and discipline and has worked to earn the pride he initially felt as being the son of Batman. While Batman has many children technically, as in a way most of his Robins are kinda like his foster kids, Damian covets the title of the son of Batman, being his naturally born heir. Number 1. John Kent, or Superboy. But of course, there are just so many Superboys, I feel like calling him John is a little less confusing, though as you've already seen, there are also many versions even of Jonathan Kent as well. We already had another one on this list. This version is kind of the son of Superman and Lois though. He was born during Convergence, and he as a baby and his parents later ended up living on a different Earth than the one that they originally inhabited because of the New 52 reset. As there were already a version of Superman and Lois Lane on this Earth, they decided to go undercover to avoid getting in the way and adopted the surname White for a time. They were the Whites. John grew up relatively normally but was always somewhat suspicious of his parents' activities. Eventually, the cat was out of the bag when John's powers manifested, and his parents told him the truth about who they really were. The cat wasn't just out of the bag though, the household cat was also accidentally killed by John's heat vision. So yes.
Kicking off the list at number 10. Jade, aka Jennifer Lynn Hayden. She made a comic book debut in All-Star Squadron issue 25 back in 1983. She is the daughter of Green Lantern Alan Scott and Rose Canton, aka Thorn. Now after conceiving their children, Rose fled, fearing that she would harm them, right? So she gave them up for adoption and they were separated. Jenny Lynn, aka Jade, was adopted by a couple in Milwaukee in the suburbs. She didn't know she had a twin brother until her late teens. Surprise, nice. Once the two of them met up, they tried to join the Justice Society, but were rejected. But have no fear, the two of them joined other children of Justice Society and then formed Infinity Inc. And then Jade's powers are of course similar to her father's due to his exposure to magical energies. She's able to generate green energy and shape it into constructs according to her will, right? We all knew this. The sibling bond is a strong one. Jade and Todd both can communicate through a limited form of telepathy. It's a twin thing, you know? And guys, before we continue on to number 9, if you haven't already, go ahead and give us a thumbs up because it really goes a long way for us here at our Fat Cave. Also, huge news, we have another channel coming back after 3 years of running the show over here. Landon himself. He's not here, but if he was, he would be there. Landon himself is coming back with Landon Productions, premiering December 7th. So go and follow and then turn on your notifications because you don't want to miss what he's got coming. I've seen glimpses of it here at the studio and I'm pumped. Let's do it.
Is the Canada Goose gonna take it on? Holy
I'm on top like I'm goddamn Mario, right? I'm just
Not today. Maybe tomorrow. Okay, is this real life right now?
Number 9, Zatanna. Appearing for the first time in Hawkman issue 4 back in 1964, Zatanna is the daughter of Zatara. She's a stage magician and she's really good. Like, really good, because you know, she has actual magic abilities. So she makes a pretty decent amount of money with these shows, which makes sense. I mean, if I had these powers, I would do the exact same thing. David Blaine who? Bye. Her father helped out the Justice Society and the Justice League of America numerous times. He was like the magic guy on the team, although Zatanna got the official membership. She gets her deeds done by speaking her spells backwards. Her mother is quite noteworthy as well, I'd say. So Zatanna thought she had died in a car crash after her birth, but actually, she's a Homo Magi, a race of magical humans that coexisted alongside Homo sapiens. And her name is Cindella. She's from another dimension. How neat. The classic made you think I was in a car accident so I can fulfill my destiny with my own magical species scenario. Nice, classic. We've all been there. Number 8, Lord Chaos. Making his debut in New Titans Annual issue 7 back in 1991, Lord Chaos is the son of Donna Troy and Terry Long. Now, Donna Troy may have a pretty confusing backstory, but her son, Robert Long, isn't as crazy. So let me explain. He was born with the powers of a god, right? So with that, he ended up going a little bit mad, right? A little bit crooked. So he ages himself, kills his own mother, and then of course becomes the dictator known as Lord Chaos. Nice, dude. Awesome. Great plan. Yeah, his name sounded evil for a reason, so you were onto something. Inspired by the original Titans team, a group of super teens going by the name Teen Titans go back in time to kill Donna before Lord Chaos, the now evil world conquering god, was born. Not a bad idea. We love time travel, let's do it. But here's the fun part, Lord Chaos goes back with them in order to prevent them from killing his mother / him. Gotcha, there he goes. So Robert was still born, but thankfully the Titans of Myth stepped in and stripped the mother and child of these godlike powers. The Titans of Myth bringing along Lord Chaos, stating he will either learn or cease to be. Learn or cease to be. This sounds like my grade 12 math teacher. He'll either learn or he'll cease to be. Now look at me, ceasing to be. Sorry, Mr. Lake. Number 7, Maxine Baker. The daughter of Buddy Baker, aka Animal Man, has quite the abilities. In the pre-Flashpoint era, Maxine Baker wasn't a huge character, right? But she of course picked up some of the powers from her father, those powers being the ability to tap into the life web and control it. And with the New 52, Maxine got bigger and badder. She became the avatar of the Red, which sounds a lot cooler already. I mean, come on. The Red is another name for the life web. So Maxine can control every animal on Earth as well. And that's not all. She's super powerful, guys. She can also control the elements and create this Eldritch Blast. It's no wonder most of the time people are trying to get a handle on her powers. I mean, even she struggles with them. Controlling animals would be a sweet gig, eh? Imagine the practical jokes. Oh my god. Number 6, Thunder. Making her first appearance in Outsiders Volume 3, Issue 1, Thunder is the daughter of Black Lightning and Lynn Stewart. So Anissa Pierce had a pretty nice deal with her father, okay? The deal was that if she graduated from college, only then can she consider a career in crime fighting. And the night of her graduation, that is exactly when she donned the costume. It didn't take long for her to get approached by Red Arrow, who offered her a position in the Outsiders. Her father's like, no, you have to resign from these crazy people, I don't like this. And of course she said, no way, Jose. And then, when Saavik came sniffing around again, her father actually helped the team out and her. And this was a cool time. This was the first time they had actually seen each other in action. What a moment that would be, eh? So Anissa was trained by Nightwing in combat, nice. She's a trained doctor, nice, hence the whole education before kicking ass deal. That plus her abilities to increase the mass of her body and become like immovable, and super strength? Look out, you're toast. Number 5, Dawn Allen. You can probably guess this one by the name, yes. The daughter of super speedster Barry Allen, aka The Flash. She made her comic book debut with Adventure Comics 373. She's a fun one. She's actually born in the future, during the first crisis. See, this was in the 30th century before the Legion stuff in the 31st century, right? So they had to hide their powers. They also go by the name of the Tornado Twins, for good reason. They both obtained a small amount of super speed from Barry. So they rescued Wally West, and it was so badass. Like, they knew what they were doing. Just because they aren't as fast doesn't mean that they don't know how to get the job done. So the twins worked side by side, and when they combined their efforts, they were unstoppable. I mean, just these two crazy tornadoes coming at you. I mean, can you be more intimidating? I don't know. Number 4, Bruce Wayne Jr. He's part of the Super Sons, so I have to include him in this list, obviously. Bruce Wayne Jr. We go on over to the 1965 version of Bruce Wayne Jr. making his debut in World's Finest, issue 154. He's the son of Catherine Kane, and as you could have guessed, Bruce Wayne Sr. Yep. He's part of a duo called the Super Sons, and that name is pretty perfect for the gig. Definitely belongs here. Sided by Superman Jr., the two grew up together. I mean, the opening of their issues show them both reading up about their dads and all their crazy achievements. They even get married on the same day. I mean, these are life goals. I mean, I hope me and my super buddies do this one day. Or just me and my buddies get married one day, that'd be nice. My favorite part is seeing the two interact, right? Like Superman's powers, there's one point where Superman's not letting baby Batman down from a teeter-totter. And he's like, nah, I'm not letting you down till you admit that my dad's cooler than yours. And he's like, alright, I guess. And comes back down all shameful. Bruce Wayne Jr. actually grew up forgetting about his father's identity somehow, and then when he was reminded of it, he tried to capture a crook while disguised as Batman. I mean, yeah, if my dad was like, hey, I'm Batman, I'd be like, okay, what size is that? I can probably squeeze in there. It didn't go well for him, you know, the first shot. He didn't gather any evidence. He just went in raw. It wasn't great. So after an argument with his father, Bruce Jr. left to meet up with his other man, Clark Kent Jr. See, they're homies. They don't go too far for a reason. I would watch a buddy cop show with these two just saving people and smashing things up, but they have to be kids. They have to be moody little kids, and they have to require little super naps in the middle of heated battles. That's the deal. Number 3, the Huntress. First appearing in All-Star Comics issue 69 back in 1977, Helena is a lawyer for Cranston, Grayson, and Wayne, but of course, that's not all. Earth 2 is home to the daughter of an older Batman and Catwoman. That's right, when she was only 19 years old, her mother, Selina Kyle, now a retired Catwoman, in the future, died in a tragic mishap, right? Now, to add insult to injury, this henchman, Silky Cernak, was the reason behind this photo that just popped up that shows Selina Kyle as Catwoman murdering a police officer. Not a great photo, not cool. If TMZ was around, they'd be like, oh my god, trending, BuzzFeed, let's do it. This is wild, right? So of course, Helena was upset and wanted to make things right. So she took a page out of her parents' book and became the Huntress. She went after Silky Smooth Cernak and got him arrested. Awesome. Her mother ended up being okay after all. Don't worry, yeah, it turns out she didn't even kill anybody. The photo was tampered with the whole time. Bad guys doing bad stuff. She kept the suit and eventually wound up on the Justice Society of America. See, if you want the truth, kids, you just gotta get a super suit and, you know, wrap some dudes in nets. It's easy. Just make them talk. It's easy. Number 2, Dina Drake, Black Canary. Flower shop owner by day, superhero at night. The classic life thing. She would work alongside Larry Lance before marrying him. How cute. I mean, he died by the hands of Aquarius, and then that forced Dina to move from Earth 2 to Earth 1 to start a new life, but cute nonetheless. But have no fear, it was in doing this that she met Green Arrow, and they of course hit it off. She has this really awesome ability called the Canary Cry, which is what I do when I, don't get what I want. Where basically she just screams really loud, knocking back her foes. It's a great combo with her fighting skills. Her origins are a little confusing. So before the Crisis storyline, there was a 1983 issue that had Starman taking Black Canary to the Thunderbolt dimension, okay? Where she sees a coffin containing Larry Lance and herself. Yeah, here's the scoop. So in the Justice League of America issue 220, it's revealed that Dina and Lance gave birth to a daughter. That daughter was cursed by a magician. The curse being that the child has an ear-piercing scream, so this baby was brought to the Thunderbolt dimension and then was made to believe that her parents were dead. And finally, number 1, Superboy, also known as Connor Kent or Con-El, made his debut in 1993 Adventures of Superman issue 500. So Superboy was created to essentially be a replacement for Superman, right? And they didn't ask me, how rude. So after Superman died fighting Doomsday, knocking him out, Project Cadmus then used Kryptonian DNA to make Superboy. So he's the son of both Lex Luthor and Clark Kent. What a weird combo. They wanted a new hero, they wanted to feel safe, so why not just make a clone of Superman? Easy peasy, right? It sounds fine. Cadmus wasn't able to get Superman's DNA, so they grabbed a human clone, made it look like him, and it turns out if you put a clone near the grave of a dead superhero, you absorb some powers. So Superman's bioelectric aura was absorbed by the clone and thus was given tactile telekinesis, which means you can simulate the powers of Superman for a small amount of time. He even rocked a high-tech visor to solve that problem, you know? He was cool looking, he knew what he was doing. The Metropolis kid wasn't a fan of being called Superboy also, so watch your mouth out there.